Dokumentlerde çok iyi. Neyse, bu aynen şöyle 5 haftanın krizinden Xorijiy.
General medicine или specific? The topic of the dissertation is Children's Games in English and Uzbek Fairy Tales, National Identity and Universality. Scientific supervisor is Fazulay Muhammadovich, and reviewers are Rajab Adilur Rahimna and Carlos Zumrazov. So, Muhammad again, we will mention the time. So you have only 10 minutes, and within these 10 minutes you should speak about the significant points of your work. So that is to say, you should give the ideas and results of your research paper, which can show your contribution. Okay? So 10 minutes of presenting your results. After honorable members of the examination committee and distinguished professors. My name is louder, please. Louder, please. My name is Muhammad and my scientific supervisor, Doctor of Science Professor of the Big Muhammadovich Isoloi. It's my... It's my great honor to present my master's dissertation entitled Children's Games in English and Uzbek fairy tales, national identity and universality. When we hear the word game, we usually think about entertainment and childhood memories. However, my research demonstrates that games in fairy tales are much more than simple amusement. They are educational instruments, cultural symbols, and powerful means of transmitting values from one generation to another. Today, I would like to show how children's games preserve national traditions while also reflecting experiences shared by children all around the world.
Can you share your presentation?
Object and subject of the research. The object of my research is children's games represented in English and Uzbek folk fairy tales and their textual and narrative manifestation. The subject of the study is the coexistence of two important concepts, national identity and universality. I aim to understand how games express unique cultural characteristics while simultaneously performing similar functions in children's moral, social, and emotional environment. Strategy, aim, and focus. The central question that guided my research was simple. How can games that originated from different cultures perform similar functions in children's life? To answer this question, I systematically analyzed children's games in English and Uzbek fairy tales to reveal how play shapes national identity and at the same time contributes to universal human development. Ultimately, this study seeks to build a bridge between cultural heritage and modern educational practice. To accomplish this aim, I established 5 main objectives. First, I examined theoretical concepts related to national identity and universality in folklore. Second, I analyzed the symbolic meanings carried by games in fairy tales. Third, I identified and compared culturally specific elements in English and Uzbek fairy tales. Fourth, I highlighted universal aspects demonstrating shared human experiences. Finally, I evaluated the educational application of traditional games in modern schools and academic lyceums. Together, these objectives allowed me to investigate children's games from theoretical, comparative, and practical perspectives.
Now, Rahman, we will speak about the analytical part of your research work. The third chapter.
Hozir nima dedingiz? Bitta qaytaring. Hozir nima dedingiz? The last sentence you used.
Educational application, traditional games in modern school and academic lyceums.
Okay, fine.
Melanie, chapter 1. Just start from the third chapter, please. Third chapter. Üçüncü bobuzdan başlayalım. It's the conclusion. The third chapter. Okay.
Having completed the comparative analysis, I moved to the practical dimension of the research. The third chapter focuses on how traditional games and fairy tales can contribute to modern education and cultural preservation. The study demonstrates that traditional games can transform language learning into an interactive and meaningful process. Students don't simply memorize vocabulary and grammar rules. Instead, they actively communicate, collaborate, and experience cultural role play. This approach increases motivation, improves intercultural competence, and creates a more engaging learning environment. Sustaining intangible cultural heritage. Traditional games also serve cultural bridge because games naturally encourage interaction and cooperation. They promote empathy and natural understanding. Sharing traditional games allows students to appreciate cultural diversity and recognize common human experiences. Therefore, preserving traditional games means preserving both cultural memory and intercultural dialogue. Based on my findings, I propose 4 practical recommendations. First, traditional games and parallel fairy tales texts should be integrated into school curricula. Second, teachers should receive training on folklore-based teaching methods. Third, digital bilingual archives of traditional games should be created. Finally, schools should organize cultural exchange activities and festivals that allow students to experience traditional games directly.
Mamrahon, please speak about your own contribution according to the children's games in English and Uzbek fairy tales. So your topic is children's games in English and Uzbek fairy tales. Yeah? So you had to identify national identity and universality. So you should clarify these things. And practical part where you are speaking about implementing these things in the classroom is another question here. This is another topic here. So your topic is children's games in English and Uzbek fairy tales. So what is national identity while comparing these two folk tales, English and Uzbek folk tales, and universality? Speak about this things. What's universality and what is national identity? Sorry for interruption, because you have only 10 minutes. If we do not interrupt you, we will speak just about other things which cannot be connected with your topic, okay? So, don't beat around the bush, speak to the point, please.
I take children's games from Uzbek fairy tales.
Which fairy tales and which games? Name them.
Okay. Rustam and Sufrat fairy tales. I take Kurash associated in these fairy tales. In English fairy tales, Cornish wrestling, Jack the Giant Killer. English, heroic bravery,
Uzbek social problem. And taught fairy tales in English. I take guessing game. In Uzbek version, yetti og'ayni. Yani bunda jumboq tarzida berilgan. Topishmoq. Jack and Beanstalk. This is the English version, hide and seek game. In Uzbek version, Zumrat va Qimmat.
And your aim was to identify the characteristic features of those games. So what the characteristic features have you found?
In Uzbek fairy tales, all of the fairy tales social communal. Yani pand nasihat ruhida, mehnat, bolalarni mehnatga o'rgatish.
Try to explain in English.
In English, all of the fairy tales, heroic, bravery,
So feature of heroism. What is? First name the general, suitable to both, and then specific ones. Have you found? Speak. Sizni ishingizlarga yutuqlarni o'zingizdan tortib olmoqchi bo'lyapman, chunki ishingizga qarab yutuqqa nisbatan kamchilik juda ko'p, yutuqni ko'rmayapmiz. O'zingizdan tortib olmoqchiman o'shani. I think.
So now questions and answers, please. Type of questions and answers. If you have any questions, please.
I have a question from the third chapter. At the third chapter 3.1, you gave as a subchapter implementation of research findings in teaching foreign languages and literature. It means it's a methodology, am I right? Okay, can you explain me this part? If this is the methodology, did you do any research for how many respondents, surveys, questionnaires, what is your graphs, tables, charts? If not, why do you include this as a subchapter here? You are telling here that the teaching foreign languages, but in your work, I don't see.
I have no question Uzbek, but I search for.
Bo'lmagani bitta masala. U o'zi nimaga kerak degan ikkinchi
Yeah.
masala.
Okay, your topic is, I will clarify the question to you, Mamra. Your topic is pairing Uzbek and English fairy tales and children's games in Uzbek and English fairy tales. So you had to discuss English and Uzbek fairy tales and discuss the games which were mentioned in these fairy tales. And this is your main problem. But in the third part of in the third chapter of your dissertation, you are mentioning that you have implemented the research results in the English teaching classes, yeah? So why do you need to implement these things in teaching English classes, which is not appropriate with the topic of the dissertation? Why? Why do you need this one? Can you prove this? Why do you need implementation of research results here? Do you understand the question? Okay. What's the main point of giving the implementation of research results as a third part of your dissertation? Bizim savollar shu edi. Sayfalarishning savollari shu edi. Bizni qiziqtirayotgan narsa 3-bo'lish. Tushundingizmi savolni? Okay. What's the reason of using these games in the English classes, English teaching classes, teaching English language?
Sometimes students boring grammar rules learning.
Okay, where did you implement? Where did you implement these research results? Which classes, which school, where did you implement?
You mentioned courage. How did you implement it? You made 2 students study? How?
How did you implement this? Where? Which school have you implemented the research results? For example, English fairy tale. In English fairy tales, there is mentioned one game, and in Uzbek literature and in Uzbek fairy tales, there is another game. And these 2 games, you have to compare these 2 games, yeah? And how do you implement these games in the classroom, especially in teaching the language? If you implement it, please give us some observations, some results of your observations of your implementation. Then we can ask an question. Questions, please?
The next question. Siz o'zi savolga tushundingizmi, izoh bergansiz? Nimani tushundingiz? Siz mana tushundingizki izoh bering.
Sınıflarda qanday qo'llash bo'yicha
Siz o'zingizga javob bermayapsiz.
Qaysi sinfda qo'lladingiz deb savol beryapman. Qayerda qo'lladingiz deyapman. Nimaga bo'lmasa implementing deysiz?
qo'llash mumkin.
Mumkin.
Siz tavsiya beryapsizmi? Unda implementation nima?
Siz 3-bo'lingiz shunga anaqa qilgansiz.
Implementation hypothesis bilan.
Qaratgansiz. Lekin sizni ishingizda bu narsa yo'q.
Uch shifr bo'yicha
Metodologiya.
bu ta'lim-tarbiya nazariyasi va metodikasi degan shifr bu yo'nalishda, bu ixtisoslikda ishga amalga oshiriladigan ishlarda odatda 2ta bo'lib nazariy bo'ladida va ana shu nazariya amaliyot qo'shilib 3-bo'lda implementation bo'ladi. Ya'ni muayyan bir sinflar tanlanadi. O'sha sinflarda ana shu nazariy, amaliy jihatdan ishlab chiqilgan, 2ta bo'lib ishlab chiqilgan narsalar tahlil qilinadi, tajriba sinovi o'tkaziladi. An'anaviy guruh bo'ladi, tajriba sinov guruhi bo'ladi. Tajriba sinov guruhida yangicha o'zini tadqiqotchining yangicha o'zini nazariyalari taqdim qilinadi. Bu yerda oddiy dars jarayoni qanday bo'lsa shunday ketaveradi. Va oxirida natijalar tekshiriladi. Qani an'anaviy darsda qancha narsani o'zlashtirdi va o'zlashtirish ko'rsatkichi qancha bo'ldi. Sizni yangiligingiz buni yuzasidan qilingan tajriba sinov guruhida qanaqa o'zlashtirish bo'ldi. Bu 13.02 ixtisosligida amalga oshiriladigan ishlarning umumiy tafsirini beryapmiz. Hozir sizni ishingiz o'shanga o'xshab ketyapti. Yaxshi, siz 3-bo'lda implementationni beryapsiz. Lekin endi siz uni qayerda ishlatdingiz va uning natijasi qanday bo'ldi? Shuni savol bersam, hozir javob bera olmayapsiz. Mana sizga o'zbekcha ham tushuntirib beryapman shu narsani. Qayerda berdingiz shu narsani? Where did you use? Where have you implemented? So research results should show some figures, diagrams, organizers, graphic organizers, and so on. So have you any type of this kind of graphics? Have you implemented anywhere? No. Why did you use it then in your dissertation? Why did you include it? What is the reason?
Kelajakda qo'llash mumkin.
Really, this speak about the results of your research work. The results of your research work. Will you please speak a little bit louder in order to make us listen?
Uzbek and English reviews. I took same.
So let it be so. Let that you compare it to fairy tales of two nations. So English and Uzbek fairy tales. You have compared them. And what happened after comparison? What happened after comparison? Nasıl yazıcı olup beraber çıkayım doldurmak mı? Türkçe kızlar. Siz yazırsak. She's cheating with her husband. Is she? Mamrahon.
Children's games are not merely entertainment, they are bridges between cultures, mirrors of national identity, and expression of universal human experience.
Once again, I didn't satisfied with your answer. What is the result of your research work? İşinizin neticesi hakkında gapirib bering.
İşingizni natijasi deganda ishingizni mavzusiga qaraysiz, asl maqsad nima edi? O'sha maqsadga erishdimi yo'qmi? O'shani ayting. Bu ana u darsda qo'llaganingiz emas. Asosiy. Gapiring nimaga aytyapsiz? O'zingizni nima qilsangiz English bo'ladi. Yaxshi, bu savolga javob yo'q. Manda o'zi ingliz tili sust deb belgilaganman. Siz kamchiliklaringizni asosiy sababi bu hozir rahbar bilan ishlamagan, boshqa bu emas. Siz predzashtaga kelmaganingiz sizni eng asosiy kamchiligingiz. Predzashta birinchi himoyaga kelganingizda bu narsa shartta yuzingizga tashlanardi va o'tmagan bo'lardingiz. Qaytib taqlab juda ham chiroyli kelgan bo'lardingiz. Kamchiliklarsiz bo'lardi, ishingiz 5 ga o'tib ketadi. Hozirgi ishingizning natijasi 5 ga o'tadigan ish emas. Yaxshi, ishingizning obyekti nima?
Children's games and Uzbek fairy tales.
Nima umumiy narsani aytyapsiz-da, nima u? Qayerdan oldingiz bu narsalarni? Uzbek fairy talesni qayerdan oldingiz?
Universality, nationality.
Bu maqsad, bu unaqa nima deydi? Vazifa deydi, vazifa. Ana shu universality topishni maqsad qilib qo'ygansiz, to'g'rimi? Yaxshi. Qaysi kitobdan oldingizmi? Devorda yozilganmi? Qayerda yozilgan? Ana o'sha narsa sizning obyektingiz bo'ladi. Tushunyapsizmi? Qaysi kitobdan olgansiz, qo'yib to'planmasin. O'sha kitob sizning obyektingiz bo'ladi. Qaysi kitobdan oldingiz?
Uzbek xalq ertaklari.
O'zbek xalq ertaklari.
Bu Uzbek ertaklari uchun. Keyin Anderson ertaklari.
She must use English language. Not English. You have to speak in English. Stop, please.
So what the object you use?
Yes.
So you already named them, and I don't advise to fail her, because as what I saw in the work is done in the second chapter. She just needs to remove the additional third chapter, and she has to divide the second chapter into two. Then the work can be considered as
She
done.
has no right. She has no right to
No
change
right to change
the.
that.
She has no right to change the dissertation because she has already completed the work. Until defense, she has a right to change, to share the
And
ideas.
she has
from
enough
his
time
work.
to do
She
it.
has enough time, but she's in the defense process. Now she cannot do
But
anything.
she put the aim.
But the aim of your
And-
dissertation is not connected with the dissertation which you have accomplished, which you have conducted.
Now, if we just ignore the third chapter, let's focus on the second chapter.
If
Is it
we
finished?
focus on the 2 chapters of the dissertation,
Yeah.
so it can be
Finished.
somehow finished because she had given some analysis, some comparisons of Uzbek and English fairy tales. But in the third chapter does not give the idea of the aim and tasks of the whole dissertation, the whole research paper.
So, well, yes, let's ask her some common questions, general questions about the introduction part of the dissertation. She knows, I think she knows nothing about it. Let's try to give her general questions.
Okay, contextual method. A contextual analysis. You know what does mean? You add there in your methodology. So what's the contextual analysis? Just give me the definition in general. No need I mean the samples of that. Just the general view, what you know, the contextual analysis. You put here in your annotation part, in your introduction part as well. You know, what's this? The second question, this is not the question, this is the suggestion. Comparative analysis, if you will give this one in Uzbek, qiyosiy tahlil, taqqoslov emas.
Where did you
Qiyosiy
get
tahlil.
this taqqoslov tahlil? Where did you observe, did you see?
Yes. How you put here taqqoslov, tadqiqot metodlari in Uzbek part. You here wrote taqqoslov, tavsifiy tahlil. Okay, the others is okay, but taqqoslov. Okay, comparative in Uzbek will not be given as a taqqoslov. It's a qiyosiy tahlil. It's a qiyosiy tahlil.
It should be closely.
She cannot answer to the questions.
Can you answer one more time?
Do you know the meaning, the definition of contextual analysis or semantic analysis or lingua-cultural or for instance approach?
The culture is everything to do
Yes.
itself, but she has to clarify the points. Comparative analysis.
Yes.
Connected with comparative analysis. Comparative analysis, Mamarapo, is not taqqoslov, it's closely, okay? Do not forget this. You should remember. We have comparative historical method which includes comparative analysis in it. Okay? Don't say taqqoslov next time. No questions? Some questions?
So I wonder about this part. Why games work in classrooms? Do you have this part in your third chapter as well? Because I wonder if you have this chapter, you need to make some surveys, and it requires some quantitative analysis. That's a problem. You and your partner, you may think that we are holding you for a long time here, but the others, like it took them only 15 or 20 minutes max to defend because of your work. Their work were done perfectly. Most of the works they were done perfectly, but your work has some errors. that is why we are questioning you. So I don't want you to think something negative about us or about the members of the committee, that we are on purpose keeping you here and asking you lots of questions. It's not like this. Because your work has some flaws, it has some errors. That is why we keep asking you questions, okay? Do not say something negative or something bad. So,
Yes. We support you in order to define what was your aim and what have you done. So we just giving questions. We are giving questions to you in order to clarify what was the main point of conducting this kind of research. Do you understand the question which might be asked? Can you answer?
games in classroom.
Why do we need games in the classroom?
And your chapter's third title, it should be reconsidered. This is not correct chapter title. This is the part of the introduction. Practical significance and application of the research finding. This is the introduction part. This is not the proper chapter name, the title. It's not. We need to reconsider. Okay.
No questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Amrahun, you may say. Time for reviewers. The first reviewer is Gafar Xorijiy. Please, will you read only comments of the dissertation pathway?
O'sha xalqaro universiteti 701, 901, xorijiy til va adabiyoti, ingliz tili va adabiyoti mutaxassisligi ikkinchi bosqich magistranti Muhammadjonova Ma'muraxon Muhsinjon qizi tomonidan magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun yozilgan magistrlik tadqiqot ishiga taqriz. Tadqiqot ishlarida yutuqlari qatorida ayrim kamchiliklar ham kuzatiladi. Ushbu kamchiliklarni hozir ham kuzatib o'tiribmiz. Demak, chapterda kamchilik borligini ko'rsatganman bu yerda. Iqtibosliklarini rasmiylashtirishda ham kamchiliklari mavjud deb aytganman. Ishning ayrim sahifalarida texnik va imloviy kamchiliklar ko'zga tashlanadi va haligacha ular olib kelgan ish ustida kamchiliklari ustida ish olib borilmagan. Xo'p, lekin shunga ham qaramasdan taqrizda mazkur tadqiqot ishi o'ziga o'z qator ijobiy jihatlarga ham ega. Mavzuga aloqador qator ilmiy manbalar yaxshilab o'rganilgan, o'zgacha bildirilgan fikr va mulohazalar unashtirishga harakat qilingan. Osiyo xalqaro universiteti 701, 901, xorijiy til va adabiyoti, ingliz tili va adabiyoti mutaxassisligi ikkinchi bosqich magistranti Muhammadjonova Ma'muraxon Muhsinjon qizining o'z mutaxassisligi bo'yicha magistrlik akademik darajasini olish uchun yozilgan dissertatsiyasi mustaqil ravishda olib borilgan, yakunlangan ilmiy ish bo'lib, magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun qo'yilgan dissertatsiya talablarining barchasiga to'liq mos keladi. Muallif esa magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun loyiq hisoblanadi. Dissertatsiyani ijobiy baholayman. Uni nimaga tavsiya etaman?
So the second review is Rajab.
İkinci bosqich magistranti Muhammadjonova Ma'muraxon Muhsinjon qizining magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun tayyorlagan Children's Games in English and Uzbek Fairy Tales, National Identity and Universality mavzusidagi dissertatsiyasiga taqriz. Taqrizchi yutuqlarni aytgan holda ba'zi bir kamchiliklarni aytib o'tganlar. Dissertatsiya ishi belgilangan barcha standart talablarga to'liq javob beradi. Ish 70 sahifani tashkil etib, kirish 3 ta asosiy bob, xulosa hamda 43 ta nufuzli ilmiy manbalarni qamrab olgan obyektlar ro'yxatidan iborat. Shu bilan birga dissertatsiyada ayrim kamchiliklar ko'zga ko'rinadi. Ishda ishoraviy va uslubiy xatolar, mavjud. Ingliz va o'zbek ertaklarida uchraydigan bolalar o'limlari tasnifini yanada batafsil guruhlarga ajratish tadqiqotning amaliy ahamiyatini oshirgan bo'lar edi. Ayrim xorijiy manbalarning eng so'nggi nashrlarini jalb qilish tadqiqotning nazariy bazasini yanada boyitgan bo'lardi. Ilovalarda keltirilgan materiallar hajmini kengaytirish tadqiqot natijalaridan foydalanish imkoniyatlarini yanada oshirgan bo'lar edi. Xulosa qilib aytganda, Muhammadjon va Ma'muraxon Muftiyjon qizining dissertatsiya ishi mustaqil tugallangan ilmiy tadqiqot namunasi bo'lib, OABning magistrlik dissertatsiyalarga qo'yiladigan barcha talablarga to'liq javob beradi. Muhammadjon va Ma'muraxon filologiya mutaxassisligi bo'yicha magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun dissertatsiyani himoya qilishga to'liq loyiq deb hisoblayman. Taqdirchi Buxoro davlat universiteti, Ingliz adabiyotshulasligi va tarjimashunoslik kafedrasi dotsenti, PhD Rajabova Dildora Rahimova.
So, Mamlaxon, your reply to reviewers, please. So, what do you say? Will you perceive all the comments which they mentioned in their reviews, or will you have another idea about this? Do you say that you were right while doing this kind of analysis in your work, or are they right? Who is right here, you or reviewers? What do you think? Do you understand, Mamlaxon? Gapiz yo'qmi? Hech narsa demaysizmi? Savolni tushundingizmi? Gapni tushundingizmi? Nima dedim men? Mamlaxon, nima dedim hozir sizga? Mani gapimni tushundingizmi? Tushundim. Nima dedim? Nimani so'radim sizdan? Siz haqmi yoki tahlilchilar haqmi? Siz ishingizni amalga oshirdingiz, ana shunaqa tahlillarni olib bordingizmi? Siz o'zingizni haq deb o'ylaysizmi yoki tahlilchilaringiz sizga uni noto'g'ri deb bergan fikrlari haqmi? Nima deb o'ylaysiz o'zingiz? Ana tadqiqotchi sifatida siz o'zingizni ishingizni himoya qilishga haqqingiz bor. Siz to'g'rimi? Yo bular aytayotgan kamchiliklar to'g'rimi, haqlimi, o'rinlimi? O'rinli. Tan olasiz kamchiliklarni. Noto'g'ri ish qilganingizni tushunyapsiz, shundaymi? Tuzatasizmi buni? Nima qilasizmi? Keyingi bosqichlarda tuzatasizmi? Keyin yana boshqa yana bir nima qiladigan bo'lsangiz, ish qiladigan bo'lsangiz, inobatga olasizmi chiqadi?
Keyingi ilmiy ishingiz qanaqa soha bo'yicha bo'ladi? Maktabdan
endi u ham o'zlarini rivojlantirish uchun kerak narsa. Okay. Next person is Husanboyeva Asila Ulbekqizi. The topic of the presentation is comparative analysis of mythological characters in English and Uzbek literature. Scientific supervisor is Fazlayev Muhammadovich, and reviewers are Jalil Gazanigorovna and Ahmed Vasalminov. So, Asila Ulbekqizna, you have only 10 minutes, and if you speak about the introduction part, you will not have enough time to move to the main part. That's why speak about the significant points.
Okay. Good afternoon, teachers. My name is Husanboyeva Asila, and let me introduce my research topic. And the topic is comparative analysis of mythological characters in English and Uzbek literature. And my scientific supervisor is Fazlayev, Doctor of Science, Professor Fazlayev Muhammadovich. And you can see here these two epic characters and focusing on their narrative functions, heroic traits, and representation of national identity. And here is the task and novelty and literature review. And in English literature, this scientist clearly studied mythology and especially focusing on Beowulf, but in Uzbek literature, Xorijiy, Kayumov studied the Uzbek mythology, focusing on Alpamush, but the direct comparative analysis of these two epic epic narratives was underexplored, and in my dissertation topic we tried to analyze this comparative analysis. And here are the methods of my research works that I used, and they are textual analysis, comparative analysis, critical discourse analysis, and contextual and historical frameworks. And here is the first chapter. The first chapter is about the theoretical frameworks of mythology.
Let's move to the third part where I can show you Roman contributions, okay?
Okay. I want to show this table. Here is the main distinction between these two epics. And according to the national origins, Beowulf is Anglo-Saxon and Alpamush it's an Uzbek epic tradition. When it comes to the language, Beowulf is an Old English and Alpamush it's Uzbek language based on the Karlukchical dialect. And period of composition, Beowulf is approximately 8th, 11th centuries and Alpamush around the 19th century. And authorships, both epics authors are anonymous. It's an oral tradition, you can say, and religious foundation of this Beowulf is a combination of pagan beliefs and Christianity. And Alpamush is based on Islamic worldview. And the main function of the hero is in Beowulf, he defeats such monsters like Grendel mothers, and the dragon. And Alpamush, he fights against invaders like karmic enemies. And dominant motives of this Beowulf epic is glory, bravery, loyalty, and destiny. But in Alpamush, it's like patriotism, tribal unity, and promotion of Islamic values. Here we can see the plot stages, and this plot stages is based on Joseph Campbell's. And this plot stages is based on the Joseph Campbell theory. As we know, Joseph Campbell, we can say that he's a father of mythology, and he analyzes different kinds of myths. And according to his analyzing, he systemized the general plot structure of myths. And Alpamush epic poem clearly suits with these plot stages. And the first one is beginning and hero's formation, and the third one conflict, and fourth one development, climax, and the last one is resolution. But in Beowulf, we can see it's like ring structure, because the topic, at the beginning, the topic of mortality and funerals occurs at the beginning of the epic poem, and the end it is continued with the same topic. That's why we can call it like ring composition. But when we look at Alpamash plot stage, it's like a linear structure. And here is my chapter 3. In chapter 3, we analyzed physical strengths of these two characters, and hyperbole is used in here, but it has got also distinction. For example, Beowulf is considered his strengths as an individual legend. In epic poem, it is Frostberg describes Beowulf's hand as having 30 men's grapple, and his Beowulf's strength equal to 30 men. And also, Beowulf says that therefore I don't wish to kill him with a sword. He wants to prove his superiority through his own strength, not using like weapons or some kind of swords. And his strength is legitimized by individual fame, not communal ritual. And his hero's body becomes an independent center of power. But when it comes to Alpamash, his strength is considered as a genealogical sign. And in epic poem, it is said that at age 7, Hakijbek draws the 14-Batman bow of his grandfather Altambi, and the people declared who Alpamash was them. We can see in this example that his strength is tested and confirmed before the clan, a ritual genealogical sign, not a private field. So we can say that his power is shared infrastructure, and it works together with his horse Pachor, his bow, and his loyalty friends Horajon, and he never strength alone. And also, when it comes to individual glory, in these two epic poems, our heroes' motivation and approach to leadership present two different kinds of philosophies. For example, in Beowulf, he defines heroism by saying that I should carry no weapon, no sword to the serpent. And his individual glory proves his strength by fighting Grendel unarmed alone by choice. And Eulogy frames his words in personal terms. You preserved your own honor and praised ours as well. So we can see that in Beowulf, we can see that individualism science in cultural concept rather than fighting for nations and others. But in Alpamash,
I see the time is up. Thank you for your presentation. Now let's turn to the questions. Please, if you have any questions, may I ask? What's the question?
I want to start with one question.
Okay,
Just a
circulate, please.
simple question, not something conceptual. So, you mentioned that Beowulf's main function is defeating Grendel. Defeating Grendel. Is it true? Or it's your idea?
function?
Yeah. Okay, open that page. I saw it here, and you mentioned that one as well. So, where you talked about this one, Grendel and Beowulf. I think this one.
Maybe this?
Yeah, this one. Yeah. With the blue one. Finish.
In this epic, Azor are three main conflicts in Beowulf epics. The first conflict.
No, I just picked exactly the term you used. Beowulf's main function is to defeat Grendel. You said like this.
No.
And my what? No,
Okay.
you said like this. And my question is it his function?
No. And his motivation and function is to get the fame instead of defending his nation. He fights in different kind of monsters in order to get the fame, his own fame.
So the matter is about the fame, not the Grendel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I got my answer.
So, may I ask a question? By comparing these two epic works, folklore, so Alpomash is like fully it's like Eastern culture related with Eastern culture, but Beowulf is something like Scandinavian related with Scandinavian culture. So the plot of both works, do you find any similarities? Maybe not in a plot, but maybe in characterization, or maybe in, let's say, in literary analysis. What kind of similarities and differences you have found, and why do you think they might be considered as similarities and the rest can be considered as differences? So.
Okay. In Beowulf, we can see the science of individualism concept because Beowulf seeks to put his name into history by acting individual acts, but in Alpomash we find the science of collectivism. His strength in unity and collective well-being his nation. And also in plot structure we have a distinction. As I said, Beowulf is like a ring structure, but in the beginning and in the end it is the similar. This epic begins with the funeral rituals, but in Alpomash structure it's like linear, and the beginning and the conflict and climax and restoration, it's like
Resolution.
Resolution. Yes.
Okay.
Do you remember these days when we had comparative literature classes with your groups? Do you remember?
Yes.
2004 or 2003.
2003.
Alpomash and Beowulf, so we had lots of discussions on these topics. And she says that this is the first time that they compare these two.
This was the famous and favorite thing of Süleyman's novel.
Yes.
So, questions?
One more question. Do you find, or have you found any magical elements in both works? And if you compare them, again, the same question, similarities and differences, maybe in terms of cultural point of view or symbolic point of view.
We found the hyperbole in the hyperbole, yeah, it's like exaggeration when the image of these two characters and
Magical elements.
Magical elements. It is the birth of Alpomash also is like one of the magical elements, and his strength and also one magical element, I think. And in Beowulf, it is also hyperbole, exaggeration is used.
Grendel itself, it's a
Yeah,
magical
Grendel
element.
also.
And those
Monster.
creatures, genes in Alpomash, monsters, are magical elements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, no more questions? Okay, if
Assalomu alaykum, yana bir bor. Osiyo xalqaro universiteti ijtimoiy fanlar va texnika fakulteti xorijiy til va ijtimoiy fanlar kafedrasi 701-109-01 xorijiy til va adabiyoti ingliz tili mutaxassisligi magistranti Hasanboyeva Asila Ulug'bek qizining comparative analysis of mythological characters in English and Uzbek literature mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasiga ichki taqriz. Ruxsatlaringiz bilan asosiy qismiga o'tsam. Demak, magistrlik dissertatsiyasini o'rganish jarayonida quyidagi tavsiyaviy xarakterdagi kamchiliklar aniqlandi. Birinchisi, tadqiqot metodlari sifatida textual analysis, comparative analysis, critical discourse analysis, contextual and historical analysis hamda theoretical frameworks sanab o'tilgan. Biroq theoretical frameworks metod sifatida emas, nazariy asos sifatida izohlanishi kerak. Shuningdek, critical discourse analysis shakli ilmiy termin sifatida critical discourse analysis tarzida bir xil berilishi maqsadga muvofiq. Ikkinchisi, adabiyotlar sharhida ayrim nazariy yo'nalishlar o'rtasida aniqlik yetishmaydi. Masalan, Beowulf tahlili ba'zi o'rinlarda literature bilan bog'lanib berilgan. Holbuki Beowulf anglo-sakson epik an'anasi bilan bog'liq asar hisoblanadi. Shu bois nazariy manbalar va adabiy davrlar o'rtasidagi chegaralar aniqroq ajratilishi lozim. 3-bobda jadval va foizli ko'rsatkichlar belgilangan. Masalan, alliteratsiya, kenning epitetlar, ya'ni jang sahnalari ulushi va diniy mifologik leksika foizlarida keltirilgan. Biroq bu ko'rsatkichlar qanday matn hajmi, qaysi nashr, qanday hisoblash mezoni va qaysi metodik asosida olingani izohlanmagan. Miqdoriy kuzatishlar ilmiy ishonchli bo'lishi uchun ularning hisoblash mexanizmi alohida tushuntirilishi kerak. Keyingisi, demak, dissertatsiya matnida imloviy, grammatik va texnik xatolar uchraydi. Masalan, tadqiqot obyekti demak, ularda har bir betga berilgan, har bitta so'zlar bu yerda xato yozilgan va undan keyin, ya'ni alpomish bitta joyda y bilan berilgan, bitta joyda i bilan berilgan shakllarning aralash qo'llanishi kabi holatlar tahrir talab qiladi. Matn himoyadan oldin lingvistik va texnik jihatdan qayta ko'rib chiqilishi lozim. Foydalanilgan adabiyotlar ro'yxatida xususan 88-91-betlarda bibliografik rasmiylashtirish bilan bog'liq kamchiliklar mavjud. 91-betda footnote va linklardan qolgan texnik, ya'ni belgilar ham uchraydi. Adabiyotlar ro'yxatida yagona bibliografik standart asosida qayta tartibga solinishi zarur. Ko'rsatilgan kamchiliklar dissertatsiyaning umumiy ilmiy yo'nalishini inkor etmaydi, balki uning strukturaviy izchilligi, metodologik aniqligi, matn sifati va bibliografik rasmiylashtirishni yanada takomillashtirishga xizmat qiladi. Xulosa qilib aytganda, Hasanboyeva Asila Ulug'bek qizi 701-109-01 xorijiy til va adabiyoti ingliz tili mutaxassisligi bo'yicha magistrlik dissertatsiyalariga qo'yiladigan talablarga javob beradi va muallifga magistrlik akademik darajasini berish uchun tavsiya etiladi. Rahmat.
So the second member is Ahmed Sarmos Hikmatova.
Ikkinchi bosqich magistranti Hasanboyeva Asila Ulug'bek qizining comparative analysis of mythological characters in English and Uzbek literature mavzusidagi magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun yozgan dissertatsiyasiga taqrizchi bayon etgan yutuqlardan keyin quyidagi demak kamchiliklarni sanab o'tmoqchiman. Ba'zi bir yutuqlarni aytmoqchi edim. Ishda tadqiqotchining mustaqil fikr yuritishga intilgani, adabiy manbalarni tahlil qilishga harakat qilgani seziladi. Tanlangan mavzu nafaqat adabiyotshunoslik, balki madaniyatlararo aloqalar, ilmiy qadriyatlar va umuminsoniy g'oyalarni o'rganish nuqtai nazaridan ham muhim hisoblanadi. Tadqiqot natijalari ingliz va o'zbek adabiyotidagi mifologik qahramonlarni chuqur tushunishga, ularning badiiy, estetik va g'oyaviy vazifalarini aniqlashga yordam beradi. Ishda sanab o'tilgan ko'pgina yutuqlardan biriga ba'zi kamchiliklar ham ko'zga tashlanadi. Jumladan, mifologik maktablar haqidagi nazariy ma'lumotlarni yanada kengaytirish maqsadga muvofiq bo'lar edi. 3-bobdagi ayrim tahliliy misollarni yanada kengaytirish va qiyosiy jadval yoki umumlashtiruvchi sxemalardan boyitish mumkin. ba'zi o'rinlarda manbalarga havola berish va bibliografik rasmiylashtirishda yagona uslubda to'liq rioya qilish zarur. Uslubga. Umuman olganda, comparative analysis of mythological characters in English and Uzbek literature mavzusidagi ilmiy ish mazmunan dolzarb, tuzilishi jihatidan izchil va ilmiy ahamiyatga ega hisoblanadi. Husanboy va Asila Ulug'bek qizining ushbu mavzudagi dissertatsiya adabiyotshunoslik yo'nalishida mustaqil ilmiy ishlar izlanish natijasi bo'lib, o'z oldiga qo'yilgan vazifalarni muvaffaqiyatli bajargan, ish ilmiy nazariy jihatdan asoslangan. Mazkur dissertatsiya muallifi magistr darajasini olishga loyiq va ushbu ishni himoyaga tavsiya etish mumkin deb taqrizchi Buxoro davlat universiteti ingliz tilshunosligi kafedrasi dotsenti, filologiya fanlari bo'yicha falsafa doktori Ahmedova
So, Asila, your replies or your views about the viewers' review. So, what will you tell? Do you agree with the comments which they give you, or you disagree with them?
I agree all of them, and from this moment, I would like to thank you all the teachers and all your ideas and suggestions will be taken into consideration in my future research work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, next presenter is Kanıtlıoğlu Kızı. The topic of dissertation is representation of folk traditions and customs in English and Uzbek literature. Scientific supervisor is Fezullah Utabek Muhammadovich. Reviewers are Gadava Mordegina and Jumayla Nuzman Juranbari. So again, we should mention time management, so follow the time management.
Good afternoon, dear Chairperson and distinguished members of the Academic Council and everyone present here. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. My full name is Iroda Kandilova and I have been studying at Asia International University for 2 years. And from this time on, I want to express my deep gratitude for all teachers who conduct seminar and lecture classes. And the dissertation was carried out at our Asia International University under the scientific supervisor, Doctor of Science, Professor Utabek Muhammadovich Fezullah. And with your permission, I will briefly present my point of view about my research work. First of all, let me begin with the relevance of the topic. Before conducting my research work, I tried to think about the meaning again to every single work, because, for example, how can the society of education can get any kind of the benefit from my research work. I tried to identify the meaning of every single word, and I said that when identifying the meanings, all of the traditions and customs are belong to our culture. That's why in our globalized world, it's very essential to keep our cultural identity. And that's why, how can we identify the cultural identities of various nations? First of all, by getting more information from the authentic materials. How can we get the authentic materials? From the literary works, of course. And I try to get and analyze more information about cultural identity. As our teacher, Ahmed said, the cultural identity, was researched by the famous researcher, the Hofstede. He divided the nations into groups, two dimensions. For example, the Eastern culture is belong to the the collectivistic society, and Western is individualistic society. And from this point of view, I try to analyze the two given objects of my research work. The first my object of my research work is from Uzbek literature, Erkin Azam's Javob, and from English literature, Kazuya Shigeru's The Romance of the Day, and in here we try to pay more attention to the cultural identity. Why we have chosen these famous works in here? The teacher was asked about this question because the collective and cultural memory in literature is often represented through retrospective narration. It means memory-based storytelling. In both literary works, the main heroes of these literary works remember their past the times and try to conduct some kind of the conclusions from their life. And it is a way in literature. It also called like the stream of consciousness. In here, the main characters try to memorize the last events and came to some kind of conclusion and try to change his life at the end of his life. That's why it's called the remains of the day, and the jawab, it means jawab, to answer in order to identify our self-identity. And I try to highlight that we try to use various literary methods in here, and we try to get in here comparative fix. Research methods used in our dissertation. The first method is comparative typological method. In Erkin Azamov, Jawab and Ishiguro's Remains of the Day, were compared genetically and typologically. Universal and culture-specific features, traditions were distinguished, and as a result, the universal and distinctive features were identified and classified. In comparison was defined through the tradition, modernity, and self-identity. And the second,
I have got less time.
Yeah.
Move to the main part.
Yeah. The practical part, yeah.
Practical, yes.
In here, I try to highlight the in whose works, for example, the Jawab, the Erkin Azam tried to use an affirmative critical approach. It means, for example, he criticizes social criticism, but tried to rely on cultural affirmation. In critical part, he criticizes the blind obedience and two traditions, loss of individuality and outdated collective thinking. In the positive part, in cultural affirmation, he respective for Uzbek cultural memory, values as original tradition, and shows moral and humanistic values. And in here, you have to pay attention in Ishiguro's work. He tried to rely on the approach and critical elegy. He criticized the blind loyalty, Kürkürona Sadokat. In the main hero, the Stevens devotes his entire life to serving his masters. As a result, he sacrificed his personal happiness and emotions. And the second thing he criticized that the mistakes of the aristocracy. Lord Darlington makes several poor political decisions. After World War II, his reputation declined significantly, and the loss of human values also significantly. The loss of human values. The Stevens places professional duty about the human relationships. Even his father, there is a tragic scene in this, the literary work. Even his father was ill, and he continues performing his duties, and also he suppresses his feelings for the Mrs. Kelton. The novel suggests that excessive devotion to our duty and social status can lead to loss of personal happiness and low and meaningful family relationships. Also in Erkin Azam's the work, the main character is engaged in a deep inner reflection about life, social expectations, and personal responsibility. And the climax in here, the protagonist reaches moment of self-question, jawab. The answer is not external, but it's internal reflection and moral consciousness. And in Erkin Azam's part, there is a family values. And for example, the hospitality, here is used the proverb, "Mehman otangdan ulug," the guest is greater than the father. And the mahalla solidarity also mentioned. Mahalla kichik davlat, the mahalla is a small state. And also here is some kind of the proverbs. But in Kazuo Ishiguro's work, there is also the the things which can help to compare.
Don't read.
Class hierarchy is very important in here. For example, the silver service was mentioned in these books. It means that at that time at Darlington Hall, all of the kitchen cutlery were made of silver, and how for example, better this kind of things is shining, it means that the service in this hall is perfect at the top, the service at the top. And but the main reason in here, by devoting his life for his duty, the main hero lost his the personal and somehow the relationships with his close people, and at the end he regret and tried to change his way of life. And in both works there is the similarities also, because the main characters in both literary works remembered and regretted from their lives and tried to change their lives, even if, for example, they belong to the elder ages. For example, in the first Kazuo Ishiguro's work, the main hero was about 28 years old, and also Ekinazam's work was also, for example, more than 50 years. And the methods we have mentioned, we try to use methods in here by, for example, for highlighting some kind of the points in the research work. We use the hermeneutic interpretive method, and the texts were interpreted through the theories. And in here, for example, the rigid, there is a word which interpreted in Uzbek in various ways, but in this research work, it represents that we have to be good enough, fulfilling our tasks on time. Textual analysis also we have. Cultural historical.
Time for questions and answers. Please, if you have any questions, you may ask.
Yes, you are welcome.
Okay.
Next flash, please.
First question. At the initial defense, I noticed that there were no examples, no extracts from the books. No from this one, Ishiguro, no from Azam. You don't have anything. And those you have in appendix are not cited. It means they're all without the certain page numbers.
Okay. In here,
No, I don't care what you have there. Here in the work, they are missing.
there is a page also.
But what should we do with this one? We don't have it here. This one is your face, not that one. I will talk about that one too. I've got lots of questions about that one as well. So, extracts missing. Those you have in appendix just fail you because they are without any proof, any evidence. Maybe they are fabricated. We have no idea from where you took it, who is the author. So this is one issue. I'm raising that one because that one was mentioned before.
Yes, let me explain.
No, this is not the question. This is your fault. Okay, explain.
Okay, in the third chapter, we tried to do the practical parts, and we have the extracts from the literary works. For example, we gave some kind of the proverbs from each literary works. And for example, the parents' blessing is God's blessing.
You know that here you put the page number, but here is no examples which you gave here as a citation.
If you have it, sure. Because I couldn't find it. You have some words.
Yes.
Words. Okay, you have words. I can write any word. It doesn't mean that I took it from Azam. or from Ishiguro. Where is the proof? Where is the page number? Where is the citation? How should I prove it? Why should we believe your words?
We gave the citation. It's okay.
Are you sure?
Yes.
From Azam?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I can show it.
For
Sure.
example, in here, the concept of autonomous, shame, and overall reputation function as powerful motives. Where we, what do you say? Got
Siz
this-
desab hozir o'qigan gapingizni Azam yozganmi? Yoki siz
In his book.
In his book o'zbekcha savol beryapman, o'zbekcha javob bering.
Kitobdan olingan.
Kitobda shu gap bormi?
Ya albatta.
Shu gap ana shu so'zma so'z aytgan.
El sözü, yes, of course.
Bu so'z bu.
And it's a proverb. Also taken from the literary work. And we cited it at the bottom of the research.
Which
Elçin
page?
Azam.
Let me check that.
Yeah.
Which page? Page number.
43. With italics.
Bitta so'zni, bitta frazani qanday misol qilib keltirish?
Not the phrase, but also the proverb.
Do you have extracts in your dissertation? Have you included? If you have, please show us. Where are they?
Adabiyoti o'zi nimani bitlari berishdi? Nimani bitlari?
Bu bilasizmi, men dissertatsiyani
İçindeki betlar mı?
Betlardagi ekranda men hozir buni ko'rdim. Men o'yladimki, bu o'xshaydi, biroz o'qiganlarga aytdim, qarang, buni bittasida juda zo'r qilibdi-da, bitta betlarni beribdi deb keyin qidirib qarg'asi
For example, the proverb.
Нет, здесь я нету. Вот этого.
Ha, bu yerda
Not
ber.
that.
Qanday?
Может быть, вам пропуск я bilmaganligi yo'q.
The proverb yolg'iz chaplamaydi, a single hand cannot clap appears in novella, and here is given at the bottom of the research work also.
Ben topladım, balkon.
And we try to do some kind of the definition of the mahalla because
I have some other questions.
okay.
Give me a word. What is an object?
The object of my research work is to conduct a comprehensive comparative analysis, traditions, representation, and erken azam cevap and Xorijiy ceremonies of the day.
Is it object?
It's a aim, and my object is the artistic representation of folk traditions, customs, and cultural values into given works belonging to different literary traditions, Uzbek family, hospitality, mahalla institutions, and in English, the rise, class hierarchy, and emotional restraint.
This is not the object. Then, another question. Why Ishiguro? Your main is to compare American, right?
English.
English.
English.
English and Uzbek. Why Ishiguro?
Ishiguro is an English writer,
It's the only English,
but
right?
who was born in Japan. He spent most of his life in England because
Yeah,
of
I
his
don't
father's
mind if it's
job.
Japanese or whatever. Why Ishiguro?
Is he
Because
considered
he
an
was-
English writer?
Because first of all, this literary work will, how to say, has
He is considered an English writer.
yes,
Yes, but why Ishiguro?
because the work, the main pillar
So
of
there are
this-
lots of what in his work? Features that you found?
yes, of course.
Traditions?
both-
Traditions and customs maybe, yeah?
Traditions
Yes.
and,
That's why you
There
have
are
taken
included
this.
traditions
That
and
is the reason.
customs by using the retrospective narration. It means
thank you.
memory-based
My
storytelling.
last question. Open the page for chapter 1.
Chapter
Then
1.
we'll move to chapter 3. This is not a criticism, just I'm
Chapter
very
1.
curious. Okay. Chapter 1. Why do you use these pictures? Do you have any aim to show? Do they have any meaning? Why these
Meaning, yes.
pictures?
In the, for example, the right hand side, there is some kind of the traditions.
Traditions.
Yeah. In
It's
which
tradition of
Tradition
Uzbek
of-
nation.
yes, hospitality.
Tradition for Uzbek nation is to read English literature.
No, in Uzbek literature, and in the other side, for example, the England
Read it.
Why do you include these books in English literature?
English literature, Uzbek
This is
literature,
one.
because
Second point, look at the teapot. What is that? What kind of teapot is this?
teapot,
It's a teapot.
yeah.
It's like this. Okay, move to the chapter 3 one. Because chapter 3 one is even more than this
Again,
one.
this one?
Okay.
Okay, three.
Chapter 3, it's not a teapot. It's not a teapot. It's
It's
something different. Chapter 3 is like this, with pictures.
Teapot is not proper.
This one? According to the Hobson's theory, we belong to the collectivistic society, and we are in the habit of welcome our guests. And in the literary work also depicted some kind of the scenes.
Chapter 3.
Three, and
Chapter
this is chapter 3.
This is
Chapter
chapter 1.
1.
Sorry.
You can read it. Okay, now look at these pictures.
In the English,
No, this one I think.
English and Uzbek literature again here.
Yes.
But in the right side we have people,
Eknazam.
and in
Jabo.
the left, and in that side you have the Eknazam, Jabo, in the
The pictures just helps us to
This
visualize the
picture,
given
this
material.
picture,
Not as I try to depict it. Actually,
Men burasından tushunishimcha o'zbeklar an'anasi faqat ovqat yeydi, faqat birga yig'iladi, choy ustida o'tiradi.
not exchange.
Inglizlar faqat yozadi. Shunaqa tushunyapman-da men buni. Faqat yeydi. Undan oldingisi ham ovqat dedi non bilan. Bunisida faqat nimadir yozadi.
rasm qadriyatga rasmni shuni topgan, lekin bu
Yeah.
qadriyatga kiradi, to'g'ri.
Yes, it doesn't mean that Uzbek people eat
Lekin hamma vaqt endi bu emasda, boshqa qadriyatlar ham bor.
food can express our social, cultural identity.
Bularda food
Food
express
can
qilmaydi.
express
Gapni oxirigacha eshitdik.
Inglizlarda food express qilmaydi. Inglizlarda food yo'q.
So,
Mehmondo'stlikni aytmoqchi, bu
Yaxshi,
yerda maqsad
manda oxirgi savol shu edi.
maqsad bu yerda nima emas.
Yo, bu
Shunday
qanaqadir ish to'g'risidagi savol emas, bu o'zingiz nima maqsadda qo'yganingizni so'radi.
just
Bunaqa maqbara ham yo'q manimcha O'zbekistonda. Bu Turkmanistonniki bilmayman.
maqsad bu yerda mehmondo'stlikni ko'rsatish bo'lgan, lekin bu yerda mehmondo'stlikni ko'rsatismi, bu yerda ham ularga nima o'shani ko'rsatishingiz kerak. Tushunarlimi? Okay. Some more questions? Questions? No questions? No questions. Okay.
Ana bu cho'ntaklarga katta demoqchi edim.
My point is here to discuss the novelty of your work, not the
Design.
design of the presentation. That's why I'm laughing here and sitting and listening to this one. Okay, if you don't have any questions, we'll give turn to the reviewers. The first reviewer is Governor Morgan Begimona. Mahmudja Kaymak, Bakar, Mufis, Duas, the comments.
xorijiy til va adabiyoti, ingliz tili adabiyot mutaxassisligi 2-bosqich magistranti Qandiyor va Elda Ixtiyor qizi tomonidan magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun ingliz va o'zbek adabiyotida xalq an'analari va madaniyatning aks etishi mavzusida yozilgan magistrlik tadqiqoti ishiga taqrizchi ishning yutuqlarini aytib o'tganlar. Demak, dissertatsiya tili sodda, ravon va ilmiy uslubga ega, ingliz va o'zbek tillaridagi terminlar izchil ishlatilgan, tahlillar dalillarga, ya'ni asarlardan keltirilgan iqtiboslar va ilmiy adabiyotlardagi konsepsiyalarga tayanib olib borilgan, matnning kompozitsiyasi mantiqan to'g'ri qurilgan, tahlil va o'zlashtirishlar puxta bajarilgan. Ishning ilmiy qiymatini oshiradigan ayrim takliflarimiz ham bor. Masalan, dissertatsiyada ayrim badiiy parchalarning hajmi ancha kattaroq bo'lib, ularni qisqartirish va keltirilgan iqtibos atrofidagi tahlilni yanada chuqurroq berish maqsadga muvofiq. Shuningdek, ishda ayrim uslubiy, imloviy, ishorali xatolar uchraydi, ularni tahliliy ravishda bartaraf etish lozim. Mazkur mulohazalar ishning umumiy ilmiy qimmatiga jiddiy ta'sir ko'rsatmaydi. Qandiyor va Iroda Ixtiyor qizi tomonidan yozilgan ingliz va o'zbek adabiyotida xalq an'analari va madaniyatning aks etishi mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasi ilmiy, nazariy va amaliy jihatdan yetuk darajada bajarilgan bo'lib, himoyaga tavsiya etiladi. Taqrizchi Osiyo xalqaro universiteti Xorijiy til va ijtimoiy fanlar kafedrasi professori DS Mavlayevna Gadova. Tashqi ijozatlaringizlar. Demak, tashqi taqrizchi dissertantning yutuqlari bilan birga, demak, ingliz va o'zbek tillaridagi terminlar izchil ishlatilgan, tahlillar, dalillarga, asarlardan keltirilgan iqtiboslar va ilmiy adabiyotlardagi konsepsiyalarga ta'lim olib borilgan deb yozganlar. Ishda yutuqlar bilan birga ayrim tanqidiy mulohazalarni ham qayd etib o'tganlar. Jumladan, ayrim nazariy bo'limlarda olimlarning konsepsiyalari sanab o'tilishi bilan cheklanib qolingan. Ularning tadqiqot mavzusiga aniq tatbiqi yanada chuqurroq berilishi mumkin edi. Ikkinchi va uchinchi boblarda ayrim takrorlar uchraydi. Bularni tahliliy ravishda kamaytirish maqsadga muvofiq. Uchinchidan, Ishigurodan keltirilgan ingliz tilidagi iqtiboslarning o'zbekcha tarjimalari bo'yicha qisqacha izoh berilishi tadqiqotning ko'p tilli auditoriyaga moslashuvini yanada yaxshilagan bo'lar edi. Mazkur mulohazalar ishning ilmiy qimmatiga jiddiy ta'sir ko'rsatmaydi va munozara xarakteriga ega. Yuqoridagilarni inobatga olib, Qandiyor va Iroda Ixtiyor qizining ingliz va o'zbek adabiyotida xalq an'analari va madaniyatning aks etishi mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasi mustaqil, yetuk va dolzarb ilmiy tadqiqot mahsuli bo'lib, magistrlik akademik darajasiga qo'yilgan barcha talablarga to'liq javob berishini ta'kidlash mumkin, ishni himoyaga tavsiya etish mumkin. Taqrizchi Buxoro davlat universiteti Xorijiy tillar fakulteti ingliz tilshunosligi kafedrasi dotsenti PhD Jumayeva Nozira Jo'raboyeva.
Thank you very much for your time and attention. I will take into consideration all the given suggestions in the future report. And thank you all.
So next presenter is next presenter is The topic of dissertation is interpretation of loneliness in 20th century Uzbek and English short stories. Scientific supervisor is Xorijiy. The reviewers are Gafar Razumrazokujanya and Anjulaeva Filipova. So, Sarah Alani Sheluna, you have only 10 minutes for presenting the main points.
First of all, good afternoon, members of colleagues and teachers. I want to start my presentation. Our topic is the interpretation of loneliness in 20th century English and short stories, and my supervisor, Associate Professor Xorijiy. Firstly, I want to talk about my objects. We chose the we chose the two short stories from each tradition, from each culture. From English literature, we chose the Miss Brill and the Daughter of the Late Colonel by Catherine Mansfield. And from Uzbek literature, we chose the A Year Without Summer and the Ancient Song by Zülfiye Korboy Kızı. These are the objects of our research work. And Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are the main part of our research work. Chapter 2. In Chapter 2, we analyzed the artistic interpretation of loneliness motif in English short stories and the representation of loneliness in Uzbek short stories. Chapter 2 analyzes how loneliness is artistically represented in English and Uzbek short stories through psychological realism, symbolism, silence, emotional atmosphere, and introspection. The chapter also proves that loneliness in the literature performs not only the psychological function. We know that loneliness is not psychological, it's the emotional function, and it is the emotional suffering rather than directed dramatic conflict. And these two writers connected this emotional suffering in their short stories, in their works. For example, we chose from English literature Miss Brill by Catherine Mansfield. In Miss Brill experiences emotional loneliness despite being surrounded by people in the park. The public garden symbolically functions as a theater of society where Miss Brill imagines herself as an important participant. Her loneliness is hidden behind imagination and emotional illusion. We know that Miss Brill, she is the woman that she didn't have the husband and children. She is alone, and but she imagined that she's not alone. She has the main part of the society. She thought like this. She thought that she is the main. She thought that society is the theater, and she is the main participant of this society. And for example, important symbol in the Miss Brill, the fur. The fur symbolizes the emotional compassion and psychological fragility. For example, she said like this to fur: "Dear little thing, it was nice to feel it again." She thought that fur is her best friend, but she thought like this to her fur. Miss Brill emotionally treats the fur like a living companion because she lacks real emotional intimacy. And another example, when she sat in the park, the two women said like this to her: "Why does she come here at all? Who wants her?" And this cruel sentence destroys Miss Brill's illusion of belonging and reveals her emotional invisibility in society, because she thought that she is the main part of the society. That's why this sentence destroys her. Main idea from this example, Mansfield showed that loneliness in modern society emerges from emotional indifference and communication failure. Second object is also by Catherine Mansfield, short story The Daughters of the Late Colonel. In Josephine, in this story, there are two daughters, Josephine and Constantina, suffer from psychological repression caused by patriarchal authority because after their father's death, they feel themselves lonely, and key artistic feature, fragmented dialogue and silence reflected in psychological paralysis. Example: what had she been going to say? This is the unfinished sentence that symbolizes the emotional confusion and inability to communicate freely, because they are depicted to their father, but after their father, they are feel lonely, and they don't have the independent idea, independent thought. Main idea in this short story, loneliness is connected with fear, emotional oppression, and lack of personal independence.
And from the Uzbek literature, I chose the Zulfiya Koloboyka's short story. First short story is A Year Without Summer, Yolsuzki, and second one is The Ancient Song, Kademi Kışın. In the A Year Without Summer, the story represents loneliness through emotional coldness and spiritual emptiness. And in this story, summer symbolically represents the emotional warmth, harmony, and happiness. For example, and in this story, there are one woman, but she has the two sons and grandchildren, but she felt herself loneliness. For example, atrofida odamlar köp edi, biroq u o'zini baribir yolg'iz his qilar edi. The protagonist feels lonely despite social presence, proving that loneliness and emotional presence with physical isolation. Another example, gapirishga odam ko'plar edi, ammo tushunadigan inson yo'q edi. The sentence emphasizes emotional misunderstanding and lack of sensory communication. Main idea for this short story, loneliness emerges because emotional warmth and human understanding disappear from the relationship. There is a misunderstanding between the mother and her sons. And the last object is the Ancient Song by Zulfiya Koloboykazy. And also this story portrays loneliness through nostalgia, memory, and weakening spiritual values. The ancient songs symbolize emotional continuity and cultural memory. For example, from this story, Go'yo yuragining bir chekkasi huvillab qolganday edi. The metaphorical emptiness inside the heart reflects spiritual loneliness and emotional incompetence. Main idea of this story, loneliness develops when people lose emotional connection with memory, morality, and spiritual identity. This is our chapter 2, and in chapter 3 we compared the similarities and differences between two traditions, Uzbek and English cultures short stories. Examples, for example, common features of loneliness in English. What are similarities? Similarities. We found the similarities between Miss Brill and A Year Without Summer because in these two short stories, the protagonist is the woman, and the main theme is also loneliness of the woman. For example, loneliness is the emotional and physical isolation, and both English and Uzbek protagonists are surrounded by people but still feel emotionally alone. For example, in Miss Brill, we have the one example, no doubt somebody would have noticed it if she hadn't been there. And from Uzbek literature, atrofida odamlar ko'p edi, biroq o'zini baribir yolg'iz his qilar edi. The protagonist also experiences emotional alienation despite social presence. In both stories, loneliness comes from lack of emotional understanding, not from physical separation. This is the first similarities. What Yeah. about the differences? Differences? Differences. Mostly in English literature, focused on existential loneliness. For example, in Catherine Mansfield's individuality, emotional invisibility, modern urban alienation, fragmented identity. For example, why does she come here at all? Who wants her? Society completely ignores misery emotionally. But in Uzbek literature, in Zulfiya Koloboykazy's work, there is the weakening family warmth because the woman has the two sons and grandchildren. They are not physical lonely, but no one understands her. No one understands her. There is a misunderstanding between her son and grandchildren. For example, Go'yo yuragining bir chekkasi huvillab qolganday edi. There is also in Uzbek literature we have the moral alienation and nostalgia and memory. we have in Uzbek literature mentality, mostly the main idea of our works.
Okay, thank you. I have my own question as well. So, Sevara and Sharona, you have investigated or you have conducted research, we can say, on the loneliness, on the topic of
Interpretation of
loneliness in 20th century English and Uzbek short stories. So, my question is that, so can we implement your research results in the process of learning, in the process of education? If we implement them, how do we enhance the education system or the quality of education using this concept of loneliness in both literature?
Thank you for your question.
This is the first question, then I will ask you the second question.
Thank you for your question. And I think, in my opinion, my dissertation maybe will implement it in literature field to analyze, to distinguish between similarities and differences between two traditions. Because we know that English literature and Uzbek literature somehow differ from each other, and in the future, in the students should analyze the differences and similarities between this kind of two literature. For example, in English literature, mostly the people have the selfishness is the high main idea, mostly, not at all, but mostly. But in our Uzbek literature, the mentality we have that, and our, for example, the character of the women are mostly pay attention, not they mostly for their family. We have the main topic is the family mentality, this kind of things.
Okay, so doesn't it affect the psychology of the family members? So you're speaking about family relations, yeah? So in two countries, I mean in two different literature. So you are mentioning family relations. So what is the effect of family relation on the children who grow in these families? Who
What
are
kind of family?
brought up in these families? I mean in English and in the literature. Doesn't it affect their psychology? So these family relations which you are mentioning in your speech, do they affect the children who are brought up in the Uzbek family and in the English family? What do you think? Do they have any psychological effects? So, for example, your topic is loneliness.
Yeah.
How is this loneliness gives the impact or shows the impact of the
For example, we know that loneliness is not only physical phenomenon, it is the emotional phenomenon, and it's also affect the people's psychological.
Okay, if we take from this point, if it affects psychologically to the children who are brought in this family, why do we need that loneliness?
Affects about moral alienation maybe in the.
Why? If it affects psychologically the children which we are bringing up, why do we need them? Is there any psychological and pedagogical efficiency of your topic? I want to know this one. Pedagogical and psychological effect or efficiency, we can say, of your research work.
I didn't work with the pedagogical side of the work.
The research which you are conducting
psychological.
should have a result like this. So you should contribute to the science some new spheres, some new theories, some new practices which can be used in the educational system. Okay, if we use loneliness in the educational system in Uzbekistan or in the English countries, English-speaking countries, so how this loneliness can affect our children? So you should think about pedagogical and psychological efficiency. Maybe while conducting further research, you may include these kind of things as well, because nowadays the research works are conducted in integration with other schools. Okay. So questions, please? More questions?
I have got a question.
Okay.
Okay. So loneliness. So you spoke about, I guess if I'm not mistaken, about the types of loneliness. Emotional, psychological, and existential. So
Introspection.
Existential. Loneliness. So my question is the following. So what symbols can be used to represent loneliness in the selected stories? This is my first question. The next one, so my question was the literal approach. They have a literal approach. Narrative techniques. So what kind of narrative techniques, or what narrative techniques have been employed in order to reveal the characters who suffer from the loneliness in the selected works?
Okay, thank you for your questions, and I want to answer your first question. Symbols, about the symbols. For example, in Miss Real by Catherine Lansbull, we have the symbol of the fur. And the fur symbolizes the emotional companionship and psychological fragility. She saw that fur is her best friend. But we know that fur is not the person, not the survivor, but she saw that it is her best friend. And this symbolizes the emotional companionship. And there is the example, very little thing, it was nice to feel again. And in the daughter of the late Colonel, in the A Year Without Summer, summer is the symbol to represent the emotional warmth, harmony, and happiness. Yeah. And also we have the ancient song. In the ancient song, that symbolize the emotional continuity and cultural memory.
The song itself.
Yeah, it's metaphorically. Ancient song, yeah.
Okay.
It's related to his the memory. When he heard this song, she in the Miss Brill, we have the protagonist, is the Miss Brill. She's the woman, she's physically alone and also emotionally alone. From the example, why does she come here at all? Who wants her? This sentence said by the two young women, but Miss Brill always saw that she is the main part of the society. She saw that society is the theater and she is the main participant of the society. But she doesn't think that she is the alone. She always saw that she has the friends, she has the other societies, and she is one member of this society. But from this sentence, from this example, we can understand that Miss Brill is not physical but emotional aloneness, because that this sentence destroys Miss Brill illusion of belonging and reveals her emotional invisibility in society. Dialect. Mostly in short stories we have, I analyze dialects.
Narrative technique denmani tushunasiz? Narrative technique nima?
Qanday o'sha bunaqani o'sha masalan yolg'izlik tushunchasini qayerdan tushunganim?
Narrative technique, first person,
Second person.
third person. So you should speak about these things. Birinchi shaxs ravilligi, ikkinchi shaxs, uchinchi shaxs omniscient deyiladi. Shular, ana shularga to'g'ri bizning narrative technique ana shu narsa.
Yo'q, ishimda bunaqa negativ takliflarim yo'q.
Yo'q,
Birinchi
birinchi
emas.
monolog deysiz.
Dialoglar orqali o'sha yolg'izlik nafasini mizonlarini olaman.
Narrative technique. When you are asked narrative technique, you should speak that there is a first personage, second personage, the third personage narration in the word. And I have, for example, I have observed the first person narration or the second or omniscient here. So you should omniscient. So you should speak these things. Okay, questions? No questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, thank you. So you may take your seat. Time for the viewers. The first viewer, and the second one is not
Xalqaro universiteti 701, 901 Xorijiy til va adabiyoti, ingliz tili va adabiyoti mutaxassisligi 2-bosqich magistranti G'afur va Sevara G'anisherovna tomonidan magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun Interpretation of Loneliness in the 20th Century English and Uzbek Short Stories mavzusida yozilgan magistrlik tadqiqot ishiga taqriz. Demak, sanab o'tilgan yutuqlar qatorida ayrim kamchiliklar ham kuzatiladi. Ba'zi iqtibosliklarni rasmiylashtirishda kamchiliklar mavjud. Ayrim sahifalarda ba'zi texnik va ilmiy kamchiliklar ko'zga tashlanadi. Xo'p, ushbu kamchiliklarni inobatga olgan holda Osiyo Xalqaro universiteti 701, 901 Xorijiy til va adabiyoti mutaxassisligi 2-bosqich magistranti G'afur va Sevara G'anisherovnaning o'z mutaxassisligi bo'yicha Interpretation of Loneliness in the 20th Century English and Uzbek Short Stories mavzusidagi magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun yozilgan dissertatsiyasi mustaqil ravishda olib borilgan. Yakunlangan ish bo'lib, ilmiy ish bo'lib, magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun qo'yilgan dissertatsiya talablarining barchasiga to'liq mos keladi. Muallif esa magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun loyiq hisoblanadi. Dissertatsiyani ijobiy baholayman va uni himoyaga tavsiya etaman.
So the second viewer is Nazula
magistranti G'afur va Sevara G'anisherovnaning Interpretation of Loneliness in 20th Century English and Uzbek Short Stories mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasiga taqrizchi dissertantning yutuqlarini aytib o'tganlar. Tadqiqotning amaliy ahamiyati ham yuqori baholangan. Dissertatsiya materiallaridan adabiyot nazariyasi, qiyosiy adabiyotshunoslik, jahon adabiyoti va o'zbek adabiyoti fanlarini o'qitishda foydalanish mumkin degan fikrlar bildirilgan. Shu bilan birga taqrizchi tomonidan dissertatsiyada ayrim kamchiliklar uchrashi, jumladan foydalanilgan adabiyotlar ro'yxatini rasmiylashtirishda ayrim bibliografik talablar to'liq saqlanmagan, ayrim joylarda ingliz tilidagi ilmiy uslub va grammatik qurilishlarda kichik xatolar mavjud, xulosa qismida ayrim ilmiy natijalar umumiy shaklda bayon qilingan bo'lib, ularni yanada aniqroq ifodalash mumkin edi. Ba'zi paragraflarda nazariy ma'lumotlar ko'pligi sabab badiiy tahlil nisbatan qisqaroq yoritilgan. Qiyosiy tahlilda ayrim badiiy misollar va iqtiboslarni keyinroq keltirish ishning ilmiy salmog'ini yanada oshirgan bo'lar edi degan fikr bildirganlar. Xulosa qilib aytganda, 20-asr ingliz va o'zbek hikoyalarida yolg'izlik talqini mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasi dolzarb, ilmiy jihatdan asoslangan va amaliy ahamiyatga ega tadqiqot ishi hisoblanadi va mazkur ish magistrlik dissertatsiyalarga qo'yilgan talablarni qanoatlantiradi hamda muallif magistr akademik darajasini olishga loyiq deb hisoblanadi. Taqrizchi Buxoro davlat universiteti Ingliz adabiyot kafedrasi demak dotsenti PhD Narzulla Firuza Olimova. Rahmat.
Thank you a lot for your attention and for the thoughtful questions and suggestions. In the future, my further research work, I will take into consideration all suggestions. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Next presenter is John Hamrakolovic. The topic of presentation is the expressive nature of personification of English and Uzbek fiction. Scientific supervisor is Kubirova Nargisa Begim Sulaymanbek-kızı, and the reviewers are Gafar Lazum Azerbaijani and Juman Musliman Juvadoğlu. So, John Hamrakolovic, you have only 10 minutes for presenting your research work.
Good afternoon, dear teachers. My name is Vanijan Hamrakolovic. Our dissertation topic is the expressive nature of personification in English and Uzbek fiction. Novelty and scope of the study, research innovation. While this personification has been extensively analyzed in both English and Uzbek literary traditions, this study offers a distinctive comparative approach. The novelty lies in examining how to culturally distinct authors, Asavlarian Voynich and Abdulhamid Chulpan, employ personification to achieve expressiveness in their respective master works. Previous scholarship has addressed personification as a semantic device, but field studies has examined its function, including emotional depth and aesthetic impact across linguistic and cultural boundaries. Core objectives: analyze scholarly perspective on expressiveness in literary discourse, examine statistic devices that enhance expressive power, select and analyze personification example from both novels, demonstrate authorial mastery in emotionalizing literary texts. Academic and practical significance, theoretical contribution. This dissertation serves as a scholarly resource for students of English and Uzbek philology in higher education. It provides foundational material for coursework, graduation projects, and advanced research in statistics, text analysis, and interpretation. Practical application. This study benefits the language learners and specialists seeking to understand statistic nuances. For instance, recognizing that the moon is winking from behind the clouds. Employs personification to enhance expressiveness, enables deeper comprehension of figurative language and its communicative function. Methodological approach. Employing descriptive methodologies, their research analyze dialogues, monologues, and landscape descriptions. This approach reveals how personification functions within various textual contexts to produce emotional resonance and aesthetic impact.
Please do not read. Do not read.
Okay.
We are not evaluating or assessing your reading skills here. Please give us the main issue or the main practical part of your dissertation where you can show your own contribution to our science. Okay?
Yes. Practical significance. First of all, we can say theoretical contributions in this dissertation.
Check this read, please.
Chapter 3 is Abdulhamid Chulpan's life and creative activity. Abdulhamid Sulaymanbek Chulpan was born in 1897, was a multi-talented personality whose contribution to Uzbek literature, theater, and intellectual life remain uncorrelated. And Chulpan was an accomplished translator. He was primarily recognized as sensitive and innovative poet who opened entirely new horizons in Uzbek poetry, introducing modern themes, emotional depth, and lyrical intensity. Chulpan was born 1897 in Andijan into a family that deeply valued education and culture. Mastered Arabic, Persian, Turkish, and Russian from an early age. 1892 and 1926, active in theater and dramaturgy, helping establish professional Uzbek theater, studied at Rousseau Institute in Moscow. 1838, arrested and executed during Stalin's repression. Rehabilitated in 1956, legitimately restored after Uzbekistan's independence. 1840, literary career began at the age 17 with publication of Turkish Kardeşler in
Yani
Serbest.
üçüne boş verdiniz. Okumayı dinlersiniz.
Okay.
Bir de olduğun ayetler okumayın.
Okay, thanks.
Ötüşme öğrendiğinizde sinemayınız bir de. İşinizde biliş derecesine öğrendiniz ki.
Okay.
Bu hozir Chulpan haqidagi umumiy ma'lumot qilmoq. Uchinchi nafa bob shumi? Uchinchi bob emas bu.
Üçüncü bölüm, üç bölümden türlü şundan kadar, çekmana
Siz
kadar.
bize yani şu comparative analysis ne verir?
Uchu diyemem.
Comparative analysis borcunu verir işte.
Ana shuni.
Comparative analysis, Voynich and Chulpan, we can see in this table shared techniques and distinct approach. Shared techniques depicting landscapes with lifelike qualities, personifying abstract nouns, assign human traits to inanimate objects, revealing characters' inner worlds. Distinct approaches are one to emphasize individual psychological state and introspection. Chulpan integrates personification into socially and historical realism.
Okay, can you give us any examples from Voynich and Chulpan's works?
Okay.
So you have discussed, you have analyzed works of Voynich and Chulpan, and you should give us the examples. I mean, the extracts which are taken from the novels of these two authors. And through these examples, please explain us how do these authors use personification of the objects or some other abstract nouns.
Chulpan's
Do you have examples here in your slide? Okay.
yes, animating nature, the annual joy of spring began to tickle heart again. Warm blood ran through the bodies of nature that had been dormant. Their space delight is portrayed through human sensation, preparing readers emotionally for character status. Personifying objects, they were clocks, pendulums, swan, ticking loudly. The phrase, the pendulum swan, attributes human action to the clock, creating with expression and conveying subtle negative connotations, revealing inner worlds, breaking the glass of their hurt illustrates the depths of emotional suffering, revealing the protagonist's lessons and societal injustice, ignorance, oppression, and disregard for human rights. Synchronizing character and nature. Chopin synchronizes depiction of nature and human character, allowing readers to emotion experience.
Thank you very much. Enough. The time's up.
Time is up. Time for answer some questions, please. If you have any questions, you may ask. Dear members of our commission, do you have any questions? Questions, please.
So, what's the subject of your research work? What's the subject of your research work? This is the first question. The
The
second
express
question.
nature of
Okay.
express of personification in English and Uzbek fiction.
And according to your object, you told, I liked your trying that.
That's it.
Yes, how to you try to explain, but here in your presentation, I didn't see any comparison, comparative analysis. I mean that here is a known table in which from the Uzbek sides were second one, I mean that the English, I mean that the sound. You compare it here, Abdul Hamid Cherkot, am I right?
Yes.
And Lilian Voynich. So, the comparison, can you tell me, with the examples, can you compare these two words, these two literary words? How you compare it? Which methodology you use there to what you just pay attention? Yes?
White described in her novel the struggle for freedom and nationality independence in Italy, revolutionary movement, and the conflict between religious faith and
Okay, according to the conflict you are saying,
Yes,
so with the
freedom.
example, can you just explain that?
in her novel, through the love protagonist, Arthur Burton, she explores theme of love, betrayal, sacrifice, injustice, and personal transformation.
Okay, and the last one. Can you tell me the major similarities and differences in the expressive function of personification in English and the Uzbek words?
Okay, both English and Uzbek writers use personification, abstract nouns, dream, hurt, joy.
This is your answer.
Yes, similar.
This is similarities.
Similarities.
What about the differences?
Difference, one used in her novel, protagonist's psychological character.
For instance, for example,
For example, Arthur Burton lived near to Mediterranean. That's why Arthur like blue ripples. Blue ripples. İşte deniz yakında yaşayan ko'zlari ko'k dengizning to'lqinlariga o'xshab qolgan edi deb ta'rif beradi. Boyinchi psixologik jihat.
rebirth, ma?
Blue ripples.
Ribbon.
Ripple. Ripple.
Ripple. Ripple.
Yes. Yes.
What is it?
Gök tolkular things.
Ripple.
Yes.
Thank you. Enough from my side.
Okay. More questions?
Any questions?
So, did you understand the gist of your work, like the essence of your work, for what you have been doing all these like 2 years?
Yes, I understand my dissertation topic because in English and in Uzbek literature there is similarities, personification.
You understand that you have to analyze the similarities
Yes, yes, I
and the
understand. How to analyze
differences.
difference between two novels.
So where are they? If you understand.
Where are they?
Nerede?
Qani qiyoslanamiz deb so'rayaptilar. Yaxshi
İngilizcen
tushundim.
yaxshi tushunyapti.
Yaxshi tushunyapti.
Tushunyapti.
Fransız tilida o'qigan lekin
Lekin tushunyapti, gapiryapti.
Yes.
Tushunib javob beryapti.
Yes.
Lekin
The
misollaringizni
power of
bermayapsizda bizda. So'zlarni beryapsiz, lekin misollarni bermayapsizda. Create with imagery. Ikkita yozuvchi ham shunaqa qilib bo'ladi. Lekin misol qani? Mana shu misol kerakda bizga. Biz misol so'rayapmiz.
Xulosa.
Ishingizda ham adashmasam.
Nimani xulosa? Halbuki ular bilan comparison yo'q.
Do you have any examples in your dissertation? Do you have any examples? Who is the reviewer?
Yeah, I have example.
Do you have any examples?
Yes.
Okay, which page do you have example? We can see. Which page of your dissertation?
No.
Where you have the examples
Okay, I
of
understand.
personification in your dissertation. So you can, if you remember the pages, we can see here in the dissertation.
Okay.
So which pages you have examples for personification?
56.
56?
Yes.
Okay, let me see.
This is the beginning of the chapter 3. So
Now, I mention three. The third part of your. The third part of your. 74'te qirqqa ketyapti. Qirqqa ketyapti, lekin misol bor. 75'dan 40'ga ketyapti. Okay, you have this. This is active site. No questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions,
Shunda men bitta narsani tavsiya qilmoqchi edim. Sizni keyingi yani ilmiy ishlaringizda qarang, siz ikki xil citation bergansiz. Ayrim joylarda siz tekstni o'zida keyingilarda nima e'tiboringizni qarating. Citationga unaqasida bunaqasida ketsin.
ishchilarimizni o'ziga eshitamiz, keyin nimadir fikr bo'lishni okay. So, thank you, Ranjan Hamakulovich. The flow is given to time for reviewers. Kafa please. Okay. Cuma günü sonucu
Xorijiy til va adabiyot. Ingliz tili va adabiyoti yo'nalishi 2-bosqich magistrantda Ilmurodov G'anijon Mamlaqulovichning The Expressive Nature of Personification in English and Uzbek Fiction mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasiga tashqi taqriz. Demak, taqrizchi ishning har bir bob bo'yicha erishilgan yutuqlarni aytib o'tganlar va dissertatsiyaning bu jihatlaridan biri unda nazariy qarashlar amaliy misollar bilan mustahkamlanganligini aytib o'tganlar. Chopin, Shakespeare, Pushkin, Gogol, Gorkiy kabi buyuk namoyandalarning ishlarini tarjima qilganligi, bir nechta tillarni mukammal bilganligini ochib bergan. Demak, bu Chopin haqida gap ketyapti. Chopinning eng muhim romanlaridan biri va Kecha va kunduz asarida personifikatsiyaning o'z o'rnida ishlatilganligi ochib berilgan. Ishda yutuqlar bilan birga ba'zi kamchiliklar uchraydi. Ishning amaliy qismida misollar sonini yanada ko'paytirish va qiyosiy tahlillarni kengroq yoritish maqsadga muvofiq bo'lar edi. Ba'zi stilistik ifodalarda tahrir talab etiladigan o'rinlar mavjud. Dissertatsiyada texnik va imloviy xatolar bor, ularni tuzatish kerak. Iqtibosliklar va adabiyotlar ro'yxatini rasmiylashtirishda kamchiliklar kuzatiladi. Biroq ushbu kamchiliklar dissertatsiyaning umumiy ilmiy saviyasiga jiddiy ta'sir ko'rsatmaydi. Xulosa qilib aytganda, Ilmurodov Jon Hamroqulovichning The Expressive Nature of Personification in English and Uzbek Fiction mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasi ilmiy tadqiqot ishlariga qo'yilgan talablar darajasida bajarilgan bo'lib, dissertatsiya muallifi mutaxassisligi bo'yicha magistr akademik darajasini olishga munosib deb hisoblanadi. Tashqi taqrizchi Buxoro davlat universitetida ingliz tilshunosligi kafedrasi dotsenti PhD Jumayeva Nodra Jo'raboyeva Şunlarda hocamlarla
birinchi taxrichizga savol bergan aytgan aytavering, fikringizni javobingizni keyin ikkinchi taxrichizga ishlaymiz. Javobingizni aytavering. Qabul qilasizmi hamma fikrlarni?
Yes, I am agree. First of all, thank you for your attention, and I would take your advice and suggestion into consideration. I try fix my mistakes.
Thank you. And second review is I think she's in the department today.
İçki taqrizchimiz tadqiqot sahifalari muallifning ushbu ishiga puxta bo'lim va tayyorgarlik bilan kirishganligidan dalolat beradi. Demak, magistrant tomonidan tadqiqot qilish jarayonida o'zgacha bo'lgan tadqiqotlarning katta qismini ko'rib chiqqan va unga keyingi fikrlari izchilligini tadqiqot yo'nalishini belgilab olishga yordam bergan. Tadqiqot ishidagi yutuqlar qatorida ayrim kamchiliklar ham kuzatildi. Ushbu kamchiliklar garchi tadqiqotga ingliz saviyasiga putur yetib qazmasa-da tuzatishni va e'tibordan chetda qoldirmaslikni talab qiladi. Ushbu kamchiliklar quyidagilardan iborat. Ba'zi iqtibosliklarni rasmiylashtirishda kamchiliklar mavjud. Ishning ayrim sahifalarida texnik va imloviy kamchiliklar ko'zga tashlanadi. Yuqorida keltirilgan kamchiliklarga qaramasdan mazkur tadqiqot ishi o'ziga xos qator ijobiy jihatlarga ega. Shu munosabat bilan Ilmurodov Jon Hamroqulovichning o'z mutaxassisligi bo'yicha The Expressive Nature of the Personification in English and Uzbek Fiction mavzusidagi magistr akademik darajasini olish uchun yozilgan dissertatsiyasi mustaqil ravishda olib borilgan va dissertatsiyani ijobiy baholayman, uni himoyaga tavsiya etaman. Osiyo xalqaro universitetida xorijiy til ijtimoiy fanlar kafedrasi muxbiri PhD dotsent Zumrad Zohirjonova rahmat.
Thank you, Madam Baklana. So, Jon Hamroqulovich, your reply to the reviewers, please, to the second reviewer. So,
First, thank you for your
will you admit all the comments which they give you? Will you admit?
Yes. Thank you for
Olmasın, kabul kılavermezsin. Okay. Thank you. So, next presenter is Izatullaeva Maftuna Rahmatullah Qizi. Topic of the dissertation is analysis of translation of the non-finite forms of the English word. Scientific supervisor is Qubur Analysis Begim Suleyman Qizi. The reviewers are Sadullah Mahtlubah and Shukuru
forms of English work. And my scientific supervisor is Kobinla Nafise Begin Süleyman Bey kızı. And the research is devoted to analysis of non-finite forms of English words and their translation into Uzbek. And non-finite forms include infinitives, gerunds, and participles. Although these forms do not express tense, person, or number directly, they play an important grammatical and semantic and stylistic role in English. And the relevance of this research is connected with the growing importance of translation in modern globalized world. English is widely used in science, education, and technology, and international communication. And as a result, translators often face difficulties while translating complex grammatical structures. And research object is the non-finite forms of English word, namely infinitive, gerunds, and participles, and their usage in English literary text, particularly George Orwell's Animal Farm. And the research subject is the analysis of translation of non-finite forms of English word. And the aim and tasks of the research work is to analyze the peculiarities of English non-finite word forms and to identify effective ways, methods, and strategies for their translation into Uzbek. And research methods, several scientific methods were used in the research process. The comparative method was applied to compare English and Uzbek grammatical structures, and the next method is the descriptive method, help explain.
Less time, that's why he's main part.
Okay.
Otherwise, you will not manage.
Chapter 1, theoretical frame.
Move to the third chapter.
Okay.
Animal farm.
Animal farm was given in the second and third chapter.
Okay.
And I will continue with this second chapter. Analysis of the translation of the non-finite words in literary discourse. This chapter focuses on practical analysis of English non-finite forms and their translation into Uzbek. The analysis is based on in literary text, particularly George Orwell's Animal Farm. And the chapter investigates how infinitive, gerund, and participles function in authentic text and how translators preserve their meaning, stylistic effect, and communicative purpose in translation. And translation of infinitives, we now translate infinitive in the sentence can express intention, purpose, and result or possibility. And during translation, infinitive often undergoes structural transformation because Uzbek grammar does not always provide direct equivalence. And there is a given from Animal Farm, the animal decided to work harder. In this sentence, infinitive shows the intention. And the translation of gerunds. The gerund combines verbal and nominal characters. This dual nature creates difficulties for translators in Uzbek because Uzbek lacks a direct grammatical equivalent of English gerund. And working together became their main principles from Animal Farm. In this sentence, working together is a noun, and it may be verbal, but it is function is noun.
Where the translation of Uzbek translation? So you are comparing English and Uzbek. So in your first sentence also you do have Uzbek translation.
Birga ishlash ularning asosiy maqsadi bo'ldi deb.
Sizda tarjimani so'ramayapmiz.
Asar.
tarjimasiz yozilgansiz, ya'ni o'zbekchasini berasiz, yana inglizchasini berasiz, o'zbekchasida qanday kelgan shu narsa degan ma'noda misolda gapiradi.
Bu bunaqa-ku, teoriya-ku.
Teoriyani misol bilan tushuntirib bera olmadim o'zi.
Hech narsani so'raydi. The translator must preserve both meaning.
Animal farmdan aytiladi. Boshida ikki bo'ladi. Boshida animal farm deb aytiladi.
Comparison beauty. Comparison muammo edi predashtada mana esimda yozib qo'yilgan. O'sha comparison.
Third chapter, the impact of non-violent forms of translation, practice and language learning. This chapter examines the role of non-violent forms in professional translation and foreign language education, and it explores how knowledge of these forms contributes to communicative competence and translation quality. Non-finite forms in translation practice. Professional translators frequently encounter non-finite constructions in literary, academic, and journalistic texts, and knowledge of these structures enables translators to understand complex sentence patterns and produce natural translations and preserve stylistic nuances and avoid grammatical errors. And as a result, translation quality is significantly improved. And pragmatic and stylistic significance, non-finite forms contribute to textual cohesion, stylistic variation, and communicative efficiency, and their pragmatic functions include expressing attitude, indicating logical relationships, and creating textual economy, and enhancing stylistic richness. Therefore, translators must consider both grammatical and pragmatic aspects. For example, for creating textual economy, we can say after finishing the work, we can create textual economy, but we can say this sentence also after I had finished it.
Pragmatic and stylistic significance, it's something like introduction part of your book. It sounds like introduction. You're showing the pragmatic and stylistic significance. Where is that significance? Okay, we understand that it's pragmatic, from pragmatic and stylistic side, very significant. But you should justify evidence from where you took this criteria.
In the third chapter,
I'm asking the question because you finished your presentation. You can conclude yourself.
In pragmatic, it is the contextual meaning we know, and to show the pragmatic and stylistic significance, I choose as a recommendation of we choose George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Okay, so your topic is connected with the translation of verbs, yeah?
Yeah.
Let me look at the non-finite forms of the English group. So you have analyzed the translation of non-finite verbs. So what challenges did you come across, and what recommendations will you advise or will you give to the future translators? So how do they enhance the quality of the translation using the methods, techniques, we can say, which you used in your dissertation?
Non-finite forms can create many difficulties in translation.
Okay,
What
challenges do they pose?
One of the major difficulty is ambiguity, because non-finite forms
Example, please.
do not clearly show
Example.
context.
Example, please.
Okay. The frightened animals
the challenge? What specific methods will you advise or will you recommend to future translators
Okay.
in order to avoid these misunderstandings?
To avoid these problems, translation challenge, we should now clearly grammatic structures and pragmatic and stylistic and semantic meaning of these non-finite forms of verbs. In literary text, translators must also preserve stylistic beauty and emotional effect.
What does mean stylistic beauty? Can you tell me the definition? Stylistic beauty. How do you understand that one? Stylistic beauty.
Stylistic beauty is used to show the idea beautifully. That how. Because somehow in gerunds and participles have hidden meanings and
Hidden?
yes,
Hidden.
Hide.
Hayt doğru. Begin giden üçüncü
Hide.
hidden meaning and so to show these meanings we should use participles and gerunds, but in Uzbek grammar construction we don't have like these constructions and exact meaning, but we can omit or we can add something, but we can change the meaning and we can
change the meaning. You are saying that we can change.
Cannot change the meaning, but we can change the form.
Grammatical meaning.
Grammatical meaning o'zgartirishimiz mumkin, lekin asosiy ma'noni o'zgartira olmaymiz.
Structure can be changed, but semantics will be kept. Semantics will be kept. Okay, do you have questions? Okay, what's pragmatics?
Meaning is a context.
Okay, can you give an example? So you are speaking about grammatical structure, you are speaking about semantics of the words, yeah, of the verbs. And what about pragmatics? Can you define pragmatic issues through English non-finite verbs?
Definition. Pragmatics is the meaning is a context, not its dictionary meaning. It is contextual meaning.
Yes, I have got a question. So, so I have looked through her books for several times because I was the one who was giving the review, right? So several times I refused her work because it wasn't well developed. And so my question is the following. So do you understand the essence of your work right now?
Yeah.
So one of your object is The Animal Farm by George Orwell and the translation of the work into Swedish language. So unfortunately I couldn't look through your latest version. Did you include examples from both works? And
examples
could you analyze? Okay. So why, ladies, you will not listen to the end? Cut my half and then answer. Okay. So you did the analysis. So if you remember, when the first time you sent in your work, you could not identify what is like non-finite
Yes, in the first chapter,
Here.
no, there is no, but there are given in my dissertation work, there are given some theoretical examples in the first chapter.
No, not theoretical. Excerpt the examples from Animal Farm.
Yes, I did in the second and in the third chapter.
So, because why I'm asking, you had only one example from the entire book. That is why I'm asking, did you include examples, at least 10 examples from English and 10 from Uzbek translation? Do you have them?
Yes.
As I said to you earlier, I could not see the latest version of your work. That's why I'm asking. You have it?
Yes, I have it.
Do you remember anything?
Yes, yes.
Your husband, I remember to class infinity. More as you got them.
You may just also show from your dissertation what
Your name?
Çünkü 3 markadan bu işlerini kaytarıldığında şarkı söylemek ki şu iş malumları hazırlığına degan ma'noda savol beryapman. Misollar keltirildi shu qiziqarli.
Kiritgan qo'shimcha misollaringizni ko'rsangiz.
Özbek tarjimasini bo'lasizmi ishingizda? O'zbek tarjimalari kerak emas, o'zbek va ingliz tarjimalari. Translation, because you have no, why not? You have to the title in the translation, because
Okay, the first reviewer is saying Sadullah So, Maftuna Rahmatullah, you will take your seat and we will listen to Sadullah
demak 1919 yili xorijiy til adabiyoti yo'nalishi magistrantı Izzatullayeva Maftuna Rahmatullah qizining Analysis of Translation was a non-final form of the English word mavzusida yozilgan magistr dissertatsiyasiga tashqi tadqiq tadqiqot ishining ijobiy jihatlari sifatida demak George Orwellning Molxona ilmu fan asar materiallari asosida amaliy misollar berilganligi tadqiqot natijalaridan tarjimashunoslik amaliy tarjima hamda ingliz tilini o'qitish jarayonida foydalanish imkoniyati mavjudligi aytib o'tilgan. Shu bilan birga demak kamchiliklar aytilgan edi. Ya'ni boblar va paragraflar o'rtasida mantiqiy izchillik ayrim o'rinlarda yetarli darajada ta'minlanmagan. Ayrim nazariy ma'lumotlar turli boblarda takrorlanib kelingan. Tadqiqotning ayrim qismlarida mavzudan chetga chiqish holatlari kuzatiladi. Jumladan shaxsiz fe'l shakllari tahlili o'rnida umumiy pragmatik va uslubiy tahlillar ko'proq e'tibor qaratilgan. George Orwellning Molxona, ya'ni Animal Farm asarida keltirilgan ayrim misollar mavzu mazmuniga to'liq mos kelmaydi. Xususan, ayrim tahlil qilingan gaplar shaxsiz fe'l shakllari emas, balki tuslangan fe'li gaplardan iborat. Amaliy tahlil qismida ingliz va o'zbek tillarida qiyosiy tarjima namunalari, jadval va statistik tahlillar sonini ko'paytirish maqsadga muvofiq bo'lar edi. Ayrim ilmiy manbalarning bibliografik rasmiylashtirilishi va ishonchlilik darajasini qo'shimcha ravishda tekshirish talab etiladi. Dissertatsiya matnida ayrim uslubiy va texnik tahlil talab qiluvchi o'rinlar mavjud. Yuqorida qayd etilgan kamchiliklar dissertatsiyaning umumiy mazmuniga jiddiy ta'sir ko'rsatmaydi va ular tahliliy ishlov berish orqali bartaraf etilishi mumkin. Shularni inobatga olgan holda Izzatullo va Maftuna Rahmatullo qizi demak tegishli tahrir va tuzatishlardan so'ng asosiy himoyaga tavsiya etish mumkin deb hisoblayman. Osiyo xalqaro universiteti xorijiy til va ijtimoiy fanlar kafedrasi dotsenti demak tashqi tadrisimiz
Bahro'ni savol sizga shu tuzatildimi o'sha narsalar?
o'shani hozir so'radim. Oxirgi variantni afsuski shu ikkinchi marta ko'rganda ko'ra olmadim. Chunki
Tuzatildimi shu?
hozir ko'rsatdilar.
Dissertant tuzatdingizmi shu?
Shu haftaning boshida o'tgan hafta dushanba kuni hisoblab qo'ygan edi. Hisoblab topshirib
Hozir ham shuni ko'rsatdilar ikkita uchta, chunki bitta dona misol bor edi ishlarda. O'shani aytdim. Xo'sh, tashqi taqriz demak tashqi taqrizda yutuqlar aytilgan. Demak, dissertatsiyaning ilmiy uslubi talab daraja doirasida bo'lib, fikrlar izchil va ravon bayon etilgan. Tadqiqot davomida qiyosiy, tavsifiy, kontekstual, tarjimaviy tahlil metodlaridan samarali foydalanilgan. Ishda yutuqlar bilan birga ayrim mulohaza talab etuvchi o'rinlar mavjud, jumladan ishning ayrim sahifalarida imloviy va ishoraviy xatolar uchraydi, ularni bartaraf etish lozim. Dissertatsiyada ayrim o'rinlarda mazmuniy takrorlar 27-31 betlar, 34-35 betlarda hamda bibliografik manbalarni rasmiylashtirish bilan bog'liq kichik texnik kamchiliklar uchraydi. Ushbu ko'rsatilgan kamchiliklar ishning ilmiy saviyasiga jiddiy ta'sir ko'rsatmaydi. Xulosa qilib aytganda, magistrlik Analysis of Translation of Non-Finite Form of the Verb mavzusidagi dissertatsiyasi magistrlik darajasi dissertatsiyalarga qo'yilgan talab mezonlariga to'liq javob beradi hamda uni Davlat attestatsiya komissiyasi huzurida himoyaga tavsiya etaman deb Buxoro davlat universiteti xorijiy tillar fakulteti ingliz texnik kafedrasi dotsenti Shukurova Madina Asqarovna tasdiq berganlar.
Thank you. And your report to the reviewers. Have you changed?
Yes, thank you.
Have you worked on the dissertation after receiving the reviews of the reviewers? Have you changed points after they mentioned?
I have changed it. Thank you for your all suggestions and recommendations. I have taken into consideration all of them, and I will try not to repeat all of them. Thank you.
When?
In the future.
In future. Okay, thank you. So the last presenter of today is defense. It is Hasanova Mohanur Asrul-Qizi. Topic of the dissertation is semantic distinctiveness of the English definite and indefinite articles and ways of translation. Scientific supervisor is Adabiyoti. The reviewers are Jalil Razali-Volobidina and Ahmed Sarminos Hikmatovna. So Mohanur, you have only 10 minutes for presenting the dissertation.
Good afternoon, dear members of the committee, and I'm Hassan Asrul-Qizi, and the theme of my research work is the semantic distinctives of the English definite and indefinite articles and ways of translation. My scientific supervisor, Associate Professor Qobilova Nargiza Begim Sulaymanbek Qizi. And the structure of the research work consists of introduction, 3 chapters, 6 paragraphs, conclusion, and a list of references. And the actuality of my research work is comparing the English language into Uzbek, and especially translating English articles in Uzbek language, because in Uzbek language there are no article system, and semantic and pragmatic functions of English articles, and developing its strategies in Uzbek language. And also the novelty, scientific novelty of my research work, and the scientific novelty is giving semantic functions of English definite and indefinite articles, and also giving some effective strategies when translating articles. And also the next novelty is literal in literal translation, giving some semantic nuances and some equivalence, and also some. And the next one is a comparative approach, and also explaining some definiteness and indefiniteness in Uzbek language. The object of my research work is a whole English article system, and I gave one novel, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice novel, and it is translation in Uzbek language. And additional, I chose some additional article, Larsen Freeman's Looking Ahead, Future Directions in and Future Research into Second Language Acquisition scientific article. And subject of my research is semantic differences of English articles and translating them into Uzbek language. And focus of analysis of my research work is investigating references, the definiteness, indefiniteness, generalization, and some significance of translation choices. And there are some tasks of the research. The first task is analyzing some semantic characterization of English articles, and also identifying the problems when translating English articles into Uzbek language. And the next one is examining different methods of translating English articles, and also giving some strategies or recommendations for the correct use of translating articles in the translation process. And there are some methodology used in the research work, descriptive comparative methods, qualitative analysis, discourse analysis, some contextual analysis, translation analysis, and also some componential methods. And some issues, there are some issues, for example, semantic functions, cross-linguistic comparison, translation strategies, or some translation errors. I said that there are three forms of English articles. It is definite article Z, indefinite article AN, and zero article. And some semantic parameters of the article used, for example, the definite article means identifiability and anaphora, and also the indefinite article AN means some generosity and some specificity. And then functions of definite articles, for example, individualizing some nouns and also anaphora. Can I move to the subject? Yes. Asar
misollar o'sha qaysi tarjimasida error, qaysi tarjimasida nima o'shalar bilan isbotlab bersangiz.
In the third chapter, it is practical analysis of translation examples. It is Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice novel, and it is Uzbek translation Andisha Bahurur. And in this third chapter, we are going to show that English article can be rendered in more than one exact way. There is no some exact way of translation articles, and translators can depend on context and some stylistic priorities. And for example, we chose this novel because of in Jane Austen's novel, prose and article meaning may support some gossip, some social distance, evolution, and irony. And the selected examples from novel Pride and Prejudice. For example, in the English article used, for example, in the subject, the word the subject, it is translated as bu mavzu. And the definite article translated in Uzbek language as bu, and demonstrative is demonstrative. And the mother, it is translated in Uzbek onasi with case with egalik qo'shimchasi orqali the mother so'zi, and definite article tarjima qilingan onasi tariqasida va an accomplished woman, ya'ni mukammal ayol bu yerda in the sentence
English.
An accomplished woman in this example, it is translated in Uzbek language as mukammal ayol. And it means a generic singular type. Bu yerda birta mukammal ayol yoki and tushirib qoldirilgan, omitted, and article omitted, and it means some generic singular type. And also emas, in the next example is emas, a woman mas. In the sentence also a article omitted, and in Uzbek language it is translated as ayol kishi. It is general meaning. Umuman olganda ayol kishi.
What do you mean omitted? Omitted in Uzbek language? You are saying a woman must here, you said omitted. But it's not omitted. A woman must, there is a.
Yes,
Yo'q, o'zbek tarjimasida omitted.
Özbek tili tarjimasida birta ayol kishi deyilmagan dedim. Umumiy olganda ayol kishi deyilgan. E'ni tarjimasi qo'yilmagan. And the next one is the next example is the subject was pursued no further, and in Uzbek translation, in the Uzbek translation book, it is written that bu mavzu boshqa davom ettirilmadi. It is also the different article translated as ko'rsatkich olmoshi bu, as bu, and the subject refers to discourse topic already mentioned in the conversation, and in Uzbek, bu mavzu makes this and strengthens the cohesion. And also the next example is in English source, in English book, it is written the mother said. In Uzbek translation, onasi jahl bilan dedi, ya'ni with egalik shakli orqali, and the mother, the different article translated with the help of case, with the help of possessive case, and also the English article identifies a role-specific referent. And in Uzbek doesn't need a different article with the possessive form onasi, and with the case C, it carries the same identification. And also the next English source, the next example is you must comprehend a great deal in your idea of an accomplished woman. In Uzbek translation, in Uzbek word, demak siz mukammal ayol deganda juda ko'p narsani tushunar ekansiz. And also in this example, there is no in mukammal ayol, an accomplished woman, umumiy mukammal ayol deb tarjima qilingan. Birta mukammal ayol emas. Mukammal ayol deb shunchaki bare noun bilan berilgan. It is given as a bare noun. And also it is additional analysis. It is a Larsen Freeman's article, and it is written in 2008 year, and it is a newly written article. And this article, there was some articles and the articles, and in Uzbek I translated this article in Uzbek language, and I gave some semantic meanings. For example, in the article there are a historical context. We can translate this article in Uzbek bir tarixiy context, ya'ni umumiy bu yerda a historical context, the indefinite article introduces a new and previously unmentioned context.
Thank you. Time is up.
So now time for questions and answers. Questions, please. Questions, please. Do you have any
Yes,
questions?
of course.
Please.
Okay, may I start?
Yes.
What is a narrative?
The novelty of giving some strategies of translating articles into Uzbek language, and giving solution for difficulties of translating English articles in Uzbek language.
Okay.
What
Serial will you recommend?
I recommend that the translators should take into consideration both grammatical and both semantic meanings of the articles.
Wasn't it given before? Wasn't it recommended before? I mean, your recommendation. Wasn't it recommended by any other scholars before?
No, it's given.
Okay. Then what's your what is it?
Maybe my novelty giving some rendering or some semantic equivalence of these articles in translated.
Sizin manusunu düşünmeniz
Yangilik.
Yani ilgili söylemadim de ben dozar bildiğini söyledim. Ne oldu bilmedim mi? Tahmininiz bu kadar. Okay, tahmininiz. Actuality.
Actually, it is this theme is important in comparative linguistics and theory of translation.
Where is comparative linguistics here?
Comparative
It's just a
linguistics
translation. Is it comparative
in
linguistics?
Uzbek language there are no article system, and in English there is a
Comparative linguistics degani çalışacağız skills'dayız. Sizin işi skill'la tercüman. Sen de böyle comparative linguistics.
tarjima nazariyasidan linguisticsga kirsak.
Tarjima hozirgi kunda lingvistika emasdan tarjima o'zi alohida fan sifatida tarjimashunoslik bo'lib ketdi. Vaqtida lingvistik tarjimashunoslik bo'lgan o'shada chiqqan vaqtlarda olimlar uni til bilan bog'liq bu faqat so'z bilan ishlaydi deb uni lingvistik tarjima deyishadi. Lekin bugungi kunda tarjimashunoslik keyinchalik badiiy tarjima deb hisoblanadigan bo'ldi. Olimlarning fikri. Ana endi bugungi kunda tilshunoslik ham deyilmaydi, lingvistik tarjimashunoslik ham deyilmaydi, badiiy tarjimalarda tarjimashunoslik deyiladi. Umuman tarjimashunoslik hammasini ichiga qamrab oladi.
Okay, next question. I wrote it here like well-written word, but is it readable anyway?
Yes, in theory of translation we can use it.
Theory of translation, we can use the translation of the article. Maybe. Theory of translation. What is theory of translation? The subject.
Tarjima nazariyasi.
Okay. Significance.
It is significant.
And is it important for humanity, society, or where?
It is for the translators maybe.
Translators may use
For
your word.
translators, or some the students who study the subject theory of translation, they can use this word for not making some mistakes when translating articles.
Okay, my last question, an objection, of course, very, very strong objection. I don't know whether my colleagues agree or not. Your topic is semantic distinctiveness of the English definite and indefinite articles. Okay. Nothing about pride and prejudice. Nothing about why did you choose? Ben bilmem, 1797 yılda yazılgan asarını öğretmendiniz. Bu İngiliz dilini bilgilendiren asar mı? Ben hozir bir zamanlar asardan tanıdım.
We choose this novel because my scientific supervisor said that there should be one concrete object, and that's why we choose.
Demek fakat 1797 yılda yazılgan asar one concrete object bölüşü mümkün nazarız.
No.
Yani
Because it has
2013 yılda yazılgan asar concrete object bölü olmasıydı.
because it has a translation from English into Uzbek language, not from Russian to Uzbek.
Nima uchun asarını yozmangiz lazım? Mavzu bundan berilgan bo'lgan. Bu juda bir qanaqadir tushunish qiyin bo'lgan narsada. Hozir siz ingliz tilida 18-asrdagi asarni tanlab olyapsiz. Ingliz tili faqat 18-asrda bo'lmagan-ku. Yoki asrni. Yoki yani zamonaviyni tanlash kerakligini endi bu albatta ma'lum. Manda shu.
Okay, more questions? More questions?
Prejudice'dagi CE artikellarning tarjimasini qanaqa mohiyat bo'lishi mumkin o'zingiz bilaman. Shunisi g'alati bo'ldi, shundan o'tgan bo'ladi. To'g'ri, bilmayman.
If you don't have any questions, thank you. You may introduce it, and now then will be given to reviewers, Jalil and Guruma. And the second reviewer is
texnika fakulteti xorijiy til va ijtimoiy fanlar kafedrasi 701-109-01 xorijiy til va adabiyoti ingliz tili mutaxassisligi magistranti Hasanova Mohinurning semantic distinctiveness of the English definite and the indefinite articles and ways of translation mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasiga ichki taqriz. Ruxsatlaringiz bilan asosiy qismiga o'tsam, magistrlik dissertatsiyani tahlil qilish jarayonida quyidagi tavsiyaviy xarakterdagi kamchiliklar aniqlandi. Dissertatsiyaning titul varag'ida UDK ko'rsatkichi mavzu yo'nalishiga mos ravishda aniq berilishi kerak qo'yilgan. Keyingisi tadqiqot obyekti va predmeti ayrim o'rinlarda to'liq chegaralanmagan. Obyekt sifatida ingliz tilidagi definite va indefinite artikellar tizimi, predmet sifatida esa ularning Pride and Prejudice romani va uning o'zbekcha tarjimasidagi semantik pragmatik berilish usullari aniqroq ajratilishi maqsadga muvofiq. Ishda tadqiqot vazifalari orasida tarjimonlar bilan so'rovnoma yoki intervyu o'tkazilishi ko'rsatilgan, biroq boblar bu yo'nalish bo'yicha amaliy natijalar, respondentlar soni yoki tahlil mexanizmi ko'rinmaydi. Agar so'rovnoma o'tkazilmagan bo'lsa, ushbu vazifani olib tashlash yoki uni amaliy dalillar bilan asoslash kerak. Ya'ni metodologiyalarda o'rda shu narsa, o'sha uchun shu narsani ko'rsatib berildi va undan keyin olib tashlagani, chunki o'zi slaydlarda ham bu narsa yo'q. UDK ham xuddi shunday berilmagandi va UDK hozirda bor. Demak, keyingisi birinchi bobda nazariy ma'lumotlar keng berilgan bo'lsa-da, ayrim qismlar oddiy izoh shaklida berilgan. Masalan, artikellarning umumiy qo'llanish qoidalari darslik uslubiga yaqin bayon qilingan. Ularni ilmiy tahlil, nazariy manbalar va mualliflarning mustaqil xulosalari bilan boyitish lozim. Keyingisi, mundarija va jadval nomlarida ayrim texnik nomuvofiqliklar mavjud. Xususan, bir nechta jadval table 1.5 tarzida takror raqamlangan. Jadval, grafik va bob ichidagi raqamlanishlar izchil va yagona tartibda berilishi kerak. Ikkinchi bobda artikellar tarjimasi bilan bir qatorda sifatlarning darajalari haqida keng ma'lumot berilgan. Bu qism mavzuga qisman bog'liq bo'lsa-da, asosiy tadqiqot yo'nalishi artikellarning semantikasi va tarjimasiga qaratilgani sababli mazkur material qisqartirilib, bevosita artikel qo'llanilishi bilan bog'liq tahlilga yo'naltirilishi lozim. Uchinchi bobda Pride and Prejudice romanida olingan misollar tahlil qilingan, biroq muallif tomonidan taklif etilgan alternative Uzbek rendering variantlari uchun aniq baholash mezonlari yetarlicha ko'rsatilmagan. Muqobil tarjimalarni baholashga semantik aniqlik, pragmatik moslik, stilistik tabiiylik va kontekstual muvofiqlik mezonlari alohida belgilansa, amaliy tahlil yanada ishonchli bo'lar edi. Foydalanilgan adabiyotlar ro'yxatida ayrim manbalar va internet havolalari rasmiy bibliografik talablar asosida to'liq rasmiylashtirilmagan. Elektron manbalarda murojaat sanasi, sahifa yoki aniq maqola nomi ko'rsatilishi, adabiyotlar ro'yxatidagi barcha manbalar esa yagona bibliografik formati keltirilishi zarur. Ushbu kamchiliklar dissertatsiyaning umumiy ilmiy qiymatini pasaytirmaydi, balki ishning rasmiylashtirilishi, metodologik izchilligi va amaliy tahlil sifatini yanada takomillashtirishga xizmat qiladi. Xulosa qilib aytganda, Hasanova Mohinurning semantic distinctiveness of the English definite and indefinite articles and ways of translation mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasi 701-109-01 xorijiy til va adabiyoti ingliz tili mutaxassisligi bo'yicha magistrlik dissertatsiyalariga qo'yilgan talablarga javob beradi va muallifga magistrlik akademik darajasini berish uchun tavsiya etiladi. E'tiborlaringiz uchun rahmat.
Thank you. So the second reviewer is just the parts where there is comment.
Magistrant Hasanova Mohinur qizining magistr dissertatsiyalariga taqriz. Demak, taqrizchi magistrantning yutuqlarini aytib o'tganlar, shu bilan birga dissertatsiyada ayrim o'rinlardan tahlilni yanada kengaytirish, ba'zi ilmiy manbalarga murojaatni ko'paytirish va xulosalarni qisqaroq hamda aniqroq shaklda umumlashtirish mumkinligini aytganlar. Biroq bu kabi mulohazalar tavsiyaviy xarakterga ega bo'lib, tadqiqotning umumiy mazmuni va natijalariga salbiy ta'sir ko'rsatmaydi. Xulosa sifatida ta'kidlash joizki, Hasanova Mohinur qizining semantic distinctiveness of English definite and indefinite articles and ways of translation mavzusidagi magistrlik dissertatsiyasi dolzarb ilmiy muammoga bag'ishlangan, mustaqil bajarilgan va ilmiy amaliy ahamiyatga ega ishdir. Mazkur dissertatsiya belgilangan talablarga javob beradi hamda muallifni himoyaga tavsiya etish mumkin deb aytganlar. Taqrizchi, demak, Buxoro davlat universiteti ingliz tilshunosligi kafedrasi dotsenti PhD Ahmedova
Sadrimiz Hikmat.
Sadrimiz Hikmat. O'z qo'ymayman. Rahmat.
Thank you. Your reply to the reviewers, please.
Thanks all of you for your attention, and I'll take into consideration all of your recommendations in my future research work, and also I'll try to correct my mistakes.
Thank you. So, dear participants, so we may go on because we should discuss few points together, as I told you before in the beginning of the defense of the dissertations. So we should have a benchmarking. So we have benchmarking. So we should discuss it together. And after maybe 5 minutes, we'll call you back. Okay? Thanks. Özünüzü kovmar mısın bazen?
Çok güzel yapmadım. Odan so'rayman. O'sha odam necha qo'yganlaringiz bilan xulosa qilgan holda yana qo'shimcha odamga bog'liq qo'yaman.
Öyle ama kendi mi? Borlar istedizler. İsimlerini bitti. Ro'yxat bo'yicha bilasizlar. Aytasizlar, aytaman. Yo'qlarni aytmaymiz, xafa bo'lish yo'q. Chunki bahosini boshqa kishiga aytishni haqqimiz yo'q. Demak, birinchi kishi kim? Ali Bamoqchi 86. Ikkinchi. Kamila. Turmasova 86. Tursunova 17, 88. Keyingilar kim? Islomga mahli yo'qmi ketishdi? Yaxshi. Keyingi kishi. Kim? Iroq va Nigora. 80. Ulardan 80. Keyingilar kim? Islomga. Islomga Lobar 69. Keyingi kishi Muhammadjonova Ma'muraxon 62 bor. Musammoy Basra bo'lamshi? Yo'q, shu yo'q, aytmaymiz yo'qlarini. Ko'rish. Qanday yo'l berilib bo'lmagan? Sizmi? 78 bor. Elnur G'anijon 62 bor. İzzatullah Mahmud bor 73 bor. Hasan Ramohov bormi? 76. Vafolga Serrachi 90. Ana bu sizlarni bugungi javoblariga qo'yilgan ballar, siz bilibsizlar, ballar nisbatan javoblaringizga qaraganda balandroq qo'yildi. Endi keyin mana shular bo'lsa o'qitizlar, bilim oldingizlar, ilmiy izlandingizlar, magistrlik dissertatsiyasini yozdingizlar. Shu mehnatlaringizni inobatga olgan holda sizlarga aytilgan, o'zlaringiz javob bergan javoblaringizdan ham yuqoriroq ball qo'ydik. Bu yerda maqsad sizlarni kamsitish, yiqitish emas. Maqsadimiz sizlarni to'g'ri yo'naltirish bu yerda. Siz chunki hammalaringiz tajriba ishlaysizlar, tajriba qilmasizlar, hammalarga kuch berasizlar. Kompyuterlardan keyin davrada o'zi bir qadam o'zidan orqadagi ishlarsiz, kollegasizlar, bir qadam orqadagi kollegasizlar. Lekin hayot davomida o'ylaymanki, bugungi mana bu chiqishlaringizdan, savollarga javob berganlaringizdan o'zlaringiz xulosa chiqarasizlar va har bir qilgan ishlaringizda mana shu taqdimotlaringizni hayotlaringiz davomida singiz qilib, qanaqangiz qilib, yaxshilab agar kimda kim e'tirozi bo'lsa, mana shu yerda aytsin. Chiqqandan keyin komissiya ish faoliyatini tugatgandan keyin e'tiroz qabul qilinadi. Bilasizlarmi? Komissiya ishini tugatgandan keyin e'tirozlar qabul qilinadi. Hozir komissiya o'z o'rnida turibdi, ish joyida. Agar nimalaringiz bo'lsa, mulohazalaringiz bormi yo boshqa bir aytadigan fikrlaringiz bormi? Hozir bormi shular? Yo'qmi? Biz rasm uchun inobatga olganimiz yo'q. Bu savollarga javoblarni inobatga oldik dedim. Sizlarni hozir aytdim, yana takrorlayman. Sizlarni chiqishlaringiz, savollarga javoblaringiz bizani qo'limizga kelib tushgan dissertatsiyani tahlil qildik. Prezentatsiyalaringizda agar biz har bir kishining prezentatsiyasi bilan muhokama qilsak, qilib yotibdi hammalaringizda kamchilik. Biz taqdimotlaringizdagi kamchilikni inobatga olganimiz yo'q. Tushunarlimi? Rasmlar, taqdimotdagi rasmlar, taqdimotdagi qo'shtirnoqlar, taqdimotdagi gaplar, copy-paste qilib qo'yilgan matnlar, ularni inobatga olgan. Agar ularni ham inobatga olsak, hozir bu yerdan hammalaringiz 3 maksimum 3 bilan chiqib ketasizlar.
hamma emas.
Endi-da, ko'pchilik shu maksimum uchdan chiqib ketadi. Endi kimdir uchni pastda, kimdir uchni yuqorirog'i bilan chiqib ketadi. Tushunarlimi? Mani rasmimga prezentatsiya qildilar degan bu gapga yo'q qo'yish no'g'ri. O'sha savol berdilar sizda, sizni qani savolni o'sha siz qadriyatni tushuntirib bera olmadingiz-ku. To'g'rimi? Nima uchun cho'nakka yo'la qo'yilgan? Ana o'sha yo'q, mavzuyingizda qadriyat deyilgansiz. Siz qadriyatni ko'rsatib bera olmadingiz. Cho'nakka yo'la qo'yapsiz, nonni qo'yapsiz, o'zbekning mehmondo'stligi ko'rsatilgan demoqchi bo'lyapsiz-ku, lekin uni ayta olmayapsiz. Vaholanki, o'zbek mehmondo'st bo'lsa, inglizlar mehmondo'st bo'lolmaydi. Uni ham o'ziga yarasha qadriyati bor. O'zbekning ichiga o'zbek, inglizni qadriyatini qo'shib qo'yapsiz, inglizni ichiga o'zbekning qadriyatini qo'shib qo'yapsiz. Biz u taqdimotdagi rasmlarni e'tiborga olmadik. Biz savollarga javobingizni, o'zingizni tutishingizni, dissertatsiyada yozgan narsangizni, keyin o'sha berilgan nimangizni, fikrlaringizni qanday, qani o'sha narsani tushunib aytyapsizmi, tushunmay aytyapsizmi? Ana shu narsalarni
Bahoni 5 kishi qo'ygan, bir kishi emas.
Bahoni 5 kishi qo'yib, men boshdan aytdim, benchmarking bo'ladi dedi. 5 ta komissiya o'zini bahosini qo'yadi, 5 ta bo'linadi qo'shilib dedi. To'g'rimi? Bitta kishi savol berdi, rasmdan deb o'sha aksincha o'sha sizga hamma qo'lboqni qo'ygan, bilasizmi? Bu kishi hammamizdan ham qo'lboqni shu qo'ygan sizga. Lekin siz aynan shu kishidan norozi bo'lyapsiz. Qani haqiqat? E'tiroz bildiringlar degani, e'tirozlar bo'lsa aytinglar degani, bu mani prezentatsiyamda rasm uchun savol berdi, shu manga past qo'ydi degani emas-ku. Masalan aytdim, hammalaringizni chiqishlaringizni navbatda oldik, savol javoblaringizni navbatda oldik. Ana shu nimalarni o'zlaringizni mohiyatini ishlaringizni tushunib gapirayotganlaringizga qarab oldik. Prezentatsiyani hech kimning prezentatsiyasini baliga ta'siri bo'lgani yo'q. Birortalarning prezentatsiyalaringiz baliga ta'sir qilgani yo'q. Chunki bu prezentatsiya siz o'zingizni tilingiz bilan qanday tayyorladingiz, qanday nima qildingiz, chiqdingiz, faqat o'zingizning ishingizni mohiyatini tushunib gapirib berib, savollarga to'g'ri javob bergansiz, ana shu bo'ldi. Ana shuni inobatga oldik. Prezentatsiyani bali umuman yo'q u yerda. Sizlarga ana shu monitoring qog'ozida nima talablar qo'yilsa, o'sha talab asosida baho qo'yildi. Bu nima degani? Dissertatsiya dolzarbmi? Undan fanlarni qiluvchi ishlardan foydalanib bilamizmi? Masalan, bemalol aytib beraman. Uni maqsadi, vazifasi, obyekti, predmeti bir mosmi? Mavzuga mosmi? Yo'qmi? Uni biz savol ham berdim. What's pedagogical efficiency dedim. What's psychological effect dedim. O'shaning psixologik foydasi, ta'siri qanaqa? Pedagogik faoliyatda samaradorligi qanaqa? Ana bu narsalarni biz tahlil biz bu yerda prezentatsiyangizni qo'shtirnoqlikda qo'yibsiz, rasmni noto'g'ri qo'yibsiz deb baho qo'ymadik. Tushundingmi? Savol bo'lmayapti. Tushuntirib berib bildim deb o'ylayman. Bu yerda hech kim bir-biridan xafa bo'ladigan holat emas, chunki komissiya obyektiv hamma o'zini bahosini qo'ydi, oxirigacha hech kimning bahosini ko'rgani yo'q. Ana oxirida biz aytdik, kotib sanab hisoblab, undan даже o'quvchilar biza hisoblamadik, komissiya a'zosi hisoblamadik, kotib hisoblab. Tushunarlimi? Boshqa e'tirozlar nimalar yo'qmi? Hammaga tushunarlimi bahosi? Tabriklayman. Muvaffaqiyatli himoya qilib, bolalarimizni o'qitishni kelajakda omon bo'lsin.